Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Zapdos Master 145, and we are going to be back at it reading Chapter 3 of my Phineas and Ferb fanfiction, Under Absolute Despotism. So, if I remember correctly, where we left off at the end of Chapter 2 is the big revelation. PJ the Platypus just told Phineas and Isabella that in the future they get married and Isabella becomes president of the United States of America, and that's the the big cliffhanger that Chapter 2 ended on, and Chapter 3 starts from. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, Chapter 3. Headquarters, Department of Homeland Security, Washington, D.C., July 7th, 2049. Uh, I've been providing commentaries for all the chapters so far, and will continue to do so here. And I just wanted to start by mentioning every chapter, usually, well, not every chapter, most chapters start with a little snippet of uh, the future or the past, depending on how you think of it, or just kind of getting a little insight into how PJ's mission got set up and began, or as was the case in the opening scene of Chapter 1, uh, setting up the mystery of who's the prisoner, why did he try to kill the director of the CIA, what's this all about, setting up the story, setting up the mystery, and you slowly start to. In fact, I think it becomes pretty apparent by this scene right here, this section we're about to go. It's pretty apparent that okay, the prisoner is PJ the Platypus. What what's the deal? What did he do? What's that got him arrested? And uh, and what's he telling this long story for? So pretty. It's just interesting. Well, I don't know. Interesting is not a very descriptive word, but it's something. It was a pattern I decided to stick to of always having each chapter open with some scene about PJ's background or setting up his mission or something like that. And I just tried to stick to the pattern. So, anyways, here we go back in the interrogation room, and now we realize, oh, it is PJ who was the prisoner at the very beginning. Ooh, wonder what that could mean. You told them they were going to be married? The interrogator shot the prisoner an infuriated look. That's a serious breach in protocol. You are not supposed to tell anybody important details about their future. And since it gets revealed that the interrogator is part of the conspirium and working for Susie Johnson, in the last chapter, this kind of seems like a lame thing for him to get hung up on. Why would he really care if he's working for the conspirium? But he's just looking for any little thing that he can accuse PJ of to have that much more uh, evidence to use against him or whatever, because he just, even if he doesn't really care about legality or due process or anything like that, he still wants to show face. And so, yeah, technically, I didn't. Oh, wrong italicized word. Technically, I didn't tell them, the prisoner tactfully replied. I may have hinted at it, but it was necessary nonetheless to help them understand the full scope of the situation. I wouldn't have been able to achieve full cooperation without it, and with the assassin still on the loose, it was a risk I chose to take. The prisoner smiled at the memory. It paid off, too. I talked with the young President Flynn a little while later, and she said that it was inevitable. Someone was going to tell him eventually. Act your age. Cough, cough. Just kidding. As a matter of fact, she told me. No, I just think it's. I always laugh that I predicted that. Oh, this is probably going to be the only way Phineas would ever learn about Isabella's crush, and what do you know? Act Your Age decided to go that route after all, so I always take pride whenever I predict something from the show in my fan fictions. As a matter of fact, she told me that she didn't see any other way he'd ever come around to noticing her, oblivious as he was to her charms. She was grateful I told him because she couldn't bring herself to. In that sense, I ascertained their marriage, even if it was by pure luck. She told you that? The lawyer asked over a high tech audio recorder. That's very mature for a young girl to say right after the boy she likes finds out about it. She didn't tell me right away, the prisoner recognized. It was a little later that day. In my defense, I thought he knew that she had feelings for him. Even in the space of maybe a few hours with the two, I already could see. That's kind of clunky. I should have written I could already see. That's a little more natural speech. I could already see that she obviously liked him. You could see it from the way President Flynn was always looking at him, always fixing her hair or straightening her skirt or adjusting her bow. Those are what body language experts call preening, or trying to make themselves look attractive, and it's supposedly a sign you use to tell if a person likes you or not if they do this around you. Uh, I read that out of a, I don't know, body language book or article or something, and was like, yeah, since I'm socially awkward, I can use this to pretend like I know what I'm talking about and make this guy sound like make PJ sound like he's smart or whatever. So there you have it. You know how impressive a character. By the way, I think that in my years since beginning to study body language and try to be more observant of people in daily social interactions, I've gotten a lot better at it. So I'm not as socially awkward as I was years ago, maybe when I wrote the story, but also even years before then. That was pretty bad. I probably looked like an autistic kid, and maybe I was, but maybe I don't think I'm autistic. But I've never been tested, so it's always possible. My mom thinks I'm autistic. I probably shouldn't say that on the internet. My mom thinks I'm a very special person. Everybody's mom loves them, but she told me that one time, and I always make fun of her for it. Like, you don't even care about me. You care about me so little that you even just blatantly tell me that I'm probably autistic without even thinking about it. Just that's one of the ways we tease each other, I guess. What am I talking about? This is ridiculous. You know how impressive a character Mr. Flynn is. I assumed he'd figure it out, brain like his, and he was just too young to know what to do about it. The last worry on my mind was that he had no idea whatsoever. What happened then? The prisoner took a sip of water from the glass he had been provided and continued his story. I to go back to actually giving commentary and analysis of the story itself. In A Gulf of Civil Horror, we start to see how widespread and ubiquitous time travel has become in the future, and it starts lending to the question of, well, do people just know everything about their life before they even live it? Do they already know how they're going to die, who they're going to get married to, how many kids they're going to have? Um, it's kind of an uncomfortable question because the stories, Despotism and Gulf, don't ever approach those ideas, even though I think they're interesting, even though I think they have story potential. They just don't really have potential in these stories, in Despotism and Gulf in particular, which are trying to be very different in their approach, using time travel as a machine to generate action thriller type stories, and not so much to explore the possibilities of what what powers time travel opens up to you, even though they do also do that in some ways, just not in those ways, not by asking those questions. uh, at surface level, the only possible answer would be that yes, people, if they had access to time travel, there's no reason they wouldn't know uh, so much information about themselves that they, I don't know, if you already know everything about yourself, what motivation do you have to live your life? So it's a bit of a conundrum from a storytelling perspective. How do you make there still be interesting things happening if there's no mysteries, because everybody already knows the end from the beginning? Everybody's as omnipotent as, you know, a god or something. They know they know everything about their lives already. How do you make an interesting story with that in mind? And so that's why I avoided the subject, even though it seems like a obvious question, and it's all the more obvious right here, because this is the first time that it really becomes an important thing in the story. Um, with, PJ telling Phineas and Isabella they get married in the future. That's a huge life detail to learn about themselves. And really, I don't have an easy answer for that. It's honest to goodness plot hole, I guess you could say. That you could you could make the argument that if people already knew everything about the future, PJ should have arrested Susie Johnson before any of this ever happened, and then the story would have never taken place. But that's obviously what should have happened, and what an intelligent person would have done, who would have actually had access to time machines and known what was going to happen if they didn't do something to prevent it. But then we don't get this cool story that I got to tell and write between Despotism and Gulf. Two cool stories that I'm really proud of. So it is what it is, and there's not really much I can do about it or say about it other than acknowledge that, yeah, there's something there that you just kind of have to squint your eyes and uh, pretend it goes away, just so that you can enjoy whatever there is to enjoy about the actual stories themselves. And that's just, maybe it's uncomfortable, or maybe it's not, but it's kind of what you have to do if you like the story, then you're willing to do that. And if you're not willing to suspend your disbelief to that extent, then what are you doing here reading this or listening to this story in the first place? Like, just flame me in your reviews and go somewhere else, and I'll just live my sad life crying about from the flame I just got in a review, which never happened. So I guess it's never been a big deal. But um, what seems like there was one other thing I was going to say. What was it? Uh, no, just mainly that plot hole, I suppose. Uh, no, that's yeah. We can move on. Nothing else to say. Danville, USA, July 4th, 2014. Finally, we get back to the action. If this is a joke, someone please tell me now. Please tell me now, Phineas requested, looking at the others. Oh, should I be using my voices? We've already tried this and failed this, but I want to keep trying every time. How would Phineas sound? If this is a joke, someone please tell me now. I don't know. Would Phineas really actually say that? I'm starting to second guess myself. I can't hear in my inner voice, in my inner mind, Phineas's voice saying that. So something seems off. But I don't know. Nothing I can do about that, I guess. If this is a joke, someone please tell me. Someone please tell me now. I don't know. Maybe his really Phineas's really serious tone of voice, like the one he used when he discovered Perry's secret identity and across the second dimension. Maybe that tone of voice he would say that line in. Yeah, maybe. I think that's good enough. Do I look like I would joke about something like this? PJ asked in a serious tone. See, there it is. Serious tones. Serious tones of voices. Silence fell. Phineas's eyes darted back and forth from Isabella to PJ to Ferb, back to Isabella. She looked horrified, her face pale white, with her hands covering her mouth. With hands covering her mouth. Ironically, it was Ferb who found a way to break the quiet. Ironic that Ferb would be the person. Perhaps we should get back to the park, he suggested. Yes, PJ breathed. Yes, we should. Come on, you guys. Awkward. He led the way out, and they followed him to the sidewalk. That was the whole uh, one of the whole points of this chapter was to try to make Phineas and Isabella's relationship super awkward now, because I think that's the most natural thing that would happen if a big bombshell like that dropped on two people who learned that they were going to get married in the future. It would get awkward for a little bit, especially if it came clear out of left field, and especially if you're still too young, like 8 or 9 or 10-year-old kids, like these kids are. That's pretty heavy. PJ, led the way out. Oh, right. Yes, PJ breathed. Yes, we should. Don't want to ignore that. Yes, we are line. Yes, we should. Always, always make a point to point it out that we used the line. We used the line, the Phineas and Ferb line. Yes, we should. Come on, guys. He led the way out, and they followed him onto the sidewalk. PJ had already assumed his regular crouching stance before they joined him to walk back to the park. Phineas gave a final look back inside the truck. Are you coming, Isabella? He called. The poor girl stood rooted to the spot, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. She hadn't moved an inch. Now, with the others all waiting, she was able to put one shaky leg in front of the other and come to the door. Instinctively, Phineas offered his hand to help her down, and she took it without thought before dropping onto the sidewalk. Then they both looked at each other, then at their still conjoined hands, and immediately snapped their arms back to their sides before looking pointedly in any other direction. You can tell I had a little bit of fun trying to make them feel super awkward and self-conscious around each other. PJ resisted the urge to roll his eyes as the two deliberately took spots on opposite sides of Ferb and began to walk. Can't you just see that in your mind's eye? So awkward. It was immensely awkward. How they seemed to make the extra effort to maintain as far apart as possible. To remain, as far apart as possible. And the blank look on Ferb's expressionless face showed it, forced as he was now into the position of being middleman. Literally, the man in the middle, because they're walking on either side. Yeah. They proceeded silently, each left to their own thoughts. Phineas was trying to use so much space that he was encroaching on PJ's lane in the walkway, and it only got more awkward when Phineas accidentally stepped on PJ's webbed foot. Yeah, don't you just hate that when people encroach on your personal space? Hate that. People walking too close. He received a sharp hiss for it, and his reflexive "sorry" was the only word spoken for several minutes. Another typo. The S in sorry should be capitalized, because even if it's in the middle of a sentence, when you use dialogue and quotation marks, you always capitalize the first word in that line, even if it's in the middle of a sentence. Technically, if you're starting the dialogue in the middle of a sentence. Yep. Grammar can get you if you don't watch yourself. I was going to say something else. But yeah, let's move on. The uncomfortable march was mercifully short, as they hadn't actually covered a lot of distance in the ice cream truck. Does that really make sense from the last chapter? It seemed like it was a kind of lengthy chase scene, but I felt like if you go back and actually look closely at it, like PJ got on the ice cream truck the moment Susie tried to make her getaway, so maybe she didn't actually get that far away, maybe just a couple of blocks. So it could have been a short enough walk, I suppose. They found the barbecue in more or less the same shape they'd left it. Cheerful, festive, and beckoning for fun. It at least brought Phineas out of his reflective mood. He put on a smile and said, "You know what, guys? I think it's time to kick this picnic up a notch." Kick it up a notch. He said the words. Yeah. People who are familiar with my work know that one of my fan fictions is called Kick It Up a Notch, and that's the series where I just make like a real episode type chapters type story updates, little short stories. Every one could be like its own 11-minute time slot episode for Phineas and Ferb, and it's all. Why am I saying this? I'm sure you guys know this. I don't have to explain this, but because I will anyways, and because I already did, uh, it's because in Across the Second Dimension, one of the songs is called Kick It Up a Notch, where they talk about continuing, where they sing about continuing to make it the best summer ever, yada yada, kick it up a notch. So it was a appropriate title for that type of story. And here I am making self references to the show references. It's just, yeah, I'm over explaining this. I'm as bad as Doofenshmirtz sometimes. Well, let's be honest. He turned to the others. PJ, do you want to help us out? The platypus responded, looking wary. All right, Ferb. It's all right. Ferb and I thought of that, and we had an idea. uh, Good job, Phineas, somehow reading PJ's mind. Put these on. Phineas instructed. Put these on, Phineas instructed, as Ferb extracted a fake mustache, wig, and overalls from the space behind his back. The magical space in cartoons where anything is capable of being stored, right behind your back. That uh, using the third dimension that the audience can't possibly imagine. uh, hide anything in that wonderful magical third dimension that cartoons have, right behind their backs. Uh, it's also funny because not only am I making fun of how Phineas and Ferb as a cartoon will occasionally pull this cartoon prank of using space behind the character's back as a place to hide an object until the moment they need it, but also uh, why did Ferb have a disguise that fit PJ this whole time? He didn't go and get it anywhere, so he's it's extra comedic levity, just in time because the we've had two pretty serious episodes, so we need a little bit of levity, and it's time for Phineas and Ferb project to take over and make it actually feel like it's still a typical day for them, even if the boys are going through some crazy things right now, like being hunted by assassins and being told by talking platypuses from the future that who they're going to get married to one day. Yeah. Anyways, back to the story. Got to find my spot again. Ah, yes. Phineas instructed as Ferb extracted a fake mustache, wig, and overalls from the space behind his back. Space behind his back. That's where we were. This way, you'll have a disguise, and nobody will get suspicious, so that you can help us out on our project too. Now, we're going to need a power drill and some pickle juice. Can you handle that? PJ accepted the disguise in his jaws. Why did I try to say accepted? Accepted. That's not even a word. PJ accepted the disguise in his jaws and pattered away, presumably to change in a more private location. He's already not wearing clothes. What does he need a private location to change for? So silly. But I don't even understand my own brain sometimes. So it's should I have just had him put on the clothes right there? Is that okay in a K plus, or is that going to imply that PJ has been naked this whole time? No, because the fact that he's not wearing clothes itself implies PJ's cartoon logic, you guys. Cartoon logic, okay? This is still a cartoon, and it's making it very obvious. These last couple paragraphs. This last paragraph. All right, Ferb, you and and when we get to covering the reviews, it's stuff like this that makes people say how uncanny that this story is. It's still feeling like a Phineas and Ferb episode, despite having more serious plot elements and undertones going on. Is because I do things this way. Have that uh, silly cartoon logic stuff going on from time to time that is pretty insignificant in the overall uh, the overall scheme of things. But they just give nice little touches here and there that uh, help the fan fiction feel like it's still blending with what we really know and remember and have experienced from the canonical shows and episodes of Phineas and Ferb. So that kind of stuff is important to me and something I try to uh, preserve in my writing. So the there you go. That's how I do it and why I do it. That's learning this kind of stuff is what you're here for, right? You're definitely not here to listen to me and my dumb sounding voice. Uh, Man, I learned how dumb my voice sounded when I went and rewatched these videos, re-listened to these videos. But that's a, don't be too self-conscious because everybody thinks their own voice sounds terrible. That's just a normal thing for most people. Everybody thinks their own voice when they hear it played back to them. We all think it sounds terrible, but nobody who you actually interact with probably thinks it's that bad. So don't get self-conscious over it. Uh, I just pretend to be self-conscious over it for the lulz. Okay, so please laugh at my jokes. Uh, Self-debasing is the easiest form of humor. Very accessible. Self-debasement. So PJ uh, presumably to change in a more private location. Ferb, you grab the wooden steel fusing tool and some bobby pins. Oh, got to say that in a more declarative voice. Ferb, you grab the wooden steel. You grab the wooden steel fusing tool and some bobby pins. Ferb exited in like manner. That's reference to the Quantum Boogaloo episode, specifically made because this is a time travel story, and so I just wanted to make that connection. Time travel episode. Here's a time travel story. Uh, so be be familiar or be aware. Like I don't know, not really be aware, but it's more like acknowledging that by having that wooden steel fusing tool reference there. It's acknowledging that is taking cues from time travel episodes of Phineas and Ferb. Turning to Isabella. Isabella, Phineas said, but as soon as he turned to face her, he deflated. She waited for orders, but Phineas couldn't seem to do any more than look at his shoes at the moment. Once he opened his mouth and almost spoke, but he quickly shut it just as fast. I'll go get the troops and build a stage, she suggested. Okay, Phineas agreed. You do that. Amazing that she knows exactly what the project's going to be, or maybe she doesn't, and building a stage is just what the Fireside Girls do most of the Phineas and Ferb projects. One or the other. Take your choice. The point of this is to demonstrate how awkward they're being around each other, still having not figured out what they really think about what they've just learned. And it says that it couldn't get any more awkward, and when it became apparent neither wanted to say more, Isabella turned and left. It taxed her to walk away from Phineas like that, but she didn't know what else to do. Lifting her eyes to the sky, a round cloud and a triangular cloud nestled cozily together, immune to all else. And that should be a hint. Round, triangular. Those should be hints. Those are symbolic because Phineas's head is triangular and Isabella's head is triangular. So if Isabella's head is circular, thank you very much. Circular. Quiet. Struggling. Wow. So a round cloud and a triangular cloud being close together should be symbolic of Isabella's. Uh, I don't what emotion is she feeling? Come on, guys, help me out. I'm not good with emotions. What's she feeling? Sadness? Uh, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. I just you just kind of intuitively understand Isabella's emotions, and so seeing those clouds is, yeah, symbolism. Okay, don't need to over explain it. I'm sure everybody gets it. Uh, uh, we're just spinning wheels, using up time for no reason. Without warning, a single tear ran down her face. There you go, sadness. How about that? Sadness is good enough. Good enough word to explain Isabella's emotions right now. But I don't know why she'd be sad, but it's kind of something along those lines. Isabella began to sing softly. Whether in her own only in her mind or in reality, it didn't matter. She sang. And here we get another song. Because every episode, and therefore every Phineas and Ferb fanfiction, should have a song. Uh, well, theoretically, if its goal is to try to be like a real episode, but as I have always said, songwriting is one of my what I feel is one of my weak points when it comes to writing. So I kind of more just write poetry than an actual song. I definitely don't know how to put this to music or anything. I'm basically just trying to get things to rhyme and have the same syllable count, and that's good enough. And maybe even have some sort of pattern to the or metric to the uh, choruses or whatever, or have some running theme going on to maybe spice it up a little, make it sound musical without actually making it musical. Just trying to look as authentic as I can get with my limited musical background and abilities. But anyways, here we go. He knows. He finally knows. Finally, after all this time, the truth at last has come out to shine, that the only desire of mine is to be with his unique, sublime, yet perfect personality so fine. Yes, he knows. Sublime. That doesn't work. That's an M, not an N. Come on, Zapdos Master. No, just kidding. uh, he's aware. He's cognizant of the fact that I love him, but does he love me back? He hasn't said, is there something I lack? Someone tell me, please, if I'm on the wrong track. Because if he doesn't, maybe I'll have to pack up and leave with my lone heart-strung knapsack now that he knows. Super sad. Doesn't that just tug at your heartstrings? No, not really, because I'm cold and cold and heartless. I have the emotions of a stone cold rock. Yeah, I struggle with emotions, especially back when I was younger as a writer, and started getting into some social experiments to try to learn how emotions worked a little better. Oh, whoops, for my writing. So we were at third third verse. Oh, Phineas, is it possible that you do not share my feelings? I know your head is shaped like a triangle, uh, but all I see is a broken heart that's bleeding. Pretend that you're watching this as a movie or as a cartoon, uh, and the visuals right there would be Isabella's imagining Phineas's head. the that then it becomes a triangle, but the triangle shapeshifts into a heart. You know, a heart's pretty close to a triangle. It kind of has three corners. It's got the sharp, pointy corner and the two round corners on the other side. So it's kind of triangle shaped. But that's the visual imagery I would be going for right there. But all I see is a broken heart that's bleeding. No, I can't give up hope, not yet. I still see the light at the end with a wedding. No matter how hard it gets, with life's many regrets, just talk to me. You can tell me anything because you know. Oh yeah, you know. Oh yeah, you know. That's right. He knows. Uh, it's not my worst. It's not my worst song. I'll just leave it at that. Isabella assembled her troop, wondering what would happen when she next saw Phineas. And here we go. Best line in the chapter. Balthazar Horowitz, you know it always is about to get good whenever he shows up, stood in line outside a row of portable outdoor restrooms. Along came a platypus, which entered an adjacent porta potty. Only seconds later, an odd-looking fellow with teal skin, a fake mustache, an unusual hairstyle, and overalls emerged from the same outhouse. Confused, Balthazar looked up and said, "Hey, why am I waiting in line when there's a vacant one right there?" That's a good one. That's I I'm not sure that's totally the best way to deliver that punchline, but that's some great imagery right there. Standing in line, there's a vacant one right there. But why is that the thing he says in such a ridiculous situation of seeing a platypus walk in and then walk out looking like a person that he's totally disguised, but the disguise is totally obvious to anybody who's watching this cartoon. But because cartoon logic in the Phineas and Ferb world, the disguises always work for Perry the Platypus. And yeah, explaining the joke always makes it less funny. That's a lesson I will never learn. When PJ returned, his jaw dropped in astonishment. "What is that?" "A fashion runway," Phineas declared, pausing to admire the gang's work. He looked back at his new friend. "How's the fit?" "Well," PJ said, inspecting the overalls, "it's a little hot, and my tail hurts. I don't understand why you humans put up with wearing extra fur. Are you sure this disguise will work?" Before Phineas could answer, Buford and Beljeet arrived with shovels in hand and hard hats on head. "Who's the new guy?" Buford asked. "Does that answer your question?" Phineas replied. "Beljeet and Buford, this is PJ. PJ, this is Beljeet and Buford." "Hello!" Beljeet's hard, high-pitched voice that I can't do very well. "Sup? We finished hardening the cement," Buford reported. "Took a lot of work getting it that hard." "Buford," Beljeet patiently explained, "I already told you. The cement would have hardened on its own. You did not need to pound on it to compact it any further." "You just have to suck the fun out of everything, don't you?" "That's good news, guys," said Phineas. "Everything's almost ready. PJ, could you help me with putting in these screws?" "Could you come help me with putting in these screws?" "Sure," said the platypus incognito. He followed Phineas to the back of the stage. "I just had a hard time reaching the high ones," Phineas said, "and I don't know where Ferb put the ladder." "I figured you'd be able to get to them if you sat on my shoulders. Can you do that?" "Yeah," PJ said, "no problem." "Great." Phineas bent down and the platypus agilely climbed up. Agilely, agilely, agilely. Nope, that's definitely not how you say it. They definitely don't say it agilely. Uh, agilely. Yeah. "How'd you guys build this so fast?" PJ asked. "Well, we had the parts delivered, and then Ferb sorted and organized everything, and Isabel and the Fireside Girls pitched in, and—" "Whoa, whoa, whoa, slow down, cowboy," PJ cut him off. "I can hardly keep up. I didn't want your whole life story. Screws, please." Uh, quick note. I didn't know what to write for that line for Phineas to try to make it sound like he was over explaining everything super rapidly and uh, hard to follow, but that was the idea I was trying to get along. I could have come up with better word choice if I stopped and thought about it for longer, but I was in a hurry. And sometimes when you're writing, you just get into the flow and you got to keep on going. Never went back and fixed it, and it works. It gets the idea across. Phineas passed them the screws up. You know, I'm glad you're here to help us build this, PJ. It's kind of like having Perry here. We never get to build stuff with Perry. Seems like he's always off doing whatever platypuses do. You and Ferb care about Perry a lot, don't you? PJ asked. We sure do. A pet platypus is a pet platypus, but we couldn't have asked for a better one than Perry. Uh, Before we move on here, it's going to be a bit of a running theme here, and I've seen it in a few other stories uh, of Perry being kind of sad that he never gets to spend time with the boys, and I think you do see that in some of the later episodes in season 3 and 4. You see that, but if you go back and carefully scrutinize season 1, you will find in the episode where they do the circus, uh, and Perry's got that silly outfit with uh, the coconut bras or whatever, coconuts, and the grass skirt and silly glasses. Uh, if you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. And the amazing Perry does this little trick where he Ferb throws him onto a trampoline, bounces off the trampoline through a hoop, and lands in a pool or whatever. Perry didn't look very super enthusiastic throughout that whole time. It was a bit of a chore. So uh, bit of bit of the whole Perry being sad he never gets to spend time with the boys or be there for their big projects. A bit of a shoehorned in character trait idea later on in the show that's not really set up or represented early on in the show. And this is just me finding little things to nitpick, but it's things you pick up on when you watch every episode as many times as I have because I'm crazy like that. What is wrong with me? Why do I still try to binge the entire show every summer when I've already seen every episode like more than 20 times? That is what obsession does to you, kids. Don't get obsessed with something. Just kidding. Totally get obsessed with something. It's way fun. Moving on. We were where were we? A pet platypus is a pet platypus, but we couldn't have asked for a better one than Perry. Good line referencing the very end of episode 1, roller coaster. Brother is brother, but I couldn't have asked for a better one than Ferb. So you know the line. Phineas paused, for PJ had begun drilling, and it wasn't prudent to converse over the noise. After driving as many screws as he could reach, he gestured that he was ready for Phineas to move to the next section. So, PJ asked in the lapsing noise, how are you handling the news about Isabella? Phineas looked at his shoes. I don't know, he responded. I mean, now that I think about it, it makes sense. We've been best friends for as long as I can remember. PJ be- PJ began screwing again, and Phineas used the time to compose his thoughts. I guess it's just weird to think about, he continued, when PJ had finished the second section. Getting married is so far away when there's so much to do today. I guess I just never thought that far into the future. Besides, how am I even supposed to know if she likes me? I mean, I know she likes me. I meant, how do I know for sure she likes me? You know, the like that means like, not the like that means like, right? We all get that. We all know what he's talking about there, right? What if she doesn't like me because what if she doesn't like me because she's only supposed to like me in the future? And now that we know the future, And now we know the future. It's going to be really awkward, and she won't like me anymore. And we don't get married and mess the future up. We are just kids after all. Kind of a valid thought process, a valid worry. PJ listened carefully. Oh, the drilling platypus didn't have to see his face to tell how concerned he was. Important line. Don't skip that. Just kidding. Not that important, but important enough to still occupy its space on the page. Did I talk about in one of my previous readings how efficient I like to think I am as a writer, and how I think every line has a purpose, and if it doesn't serve some purpose that you can expressly put into words, then you should get rid of the line. So yeah, uh, why am I talking about this? Because I accidentally skipped the line, but this is how tangential I can be. To go off on this tangent and say, uh, the line isn't super important. You could figure that out by context as a reader, but it's just nice to have that extra detail, and it still holds its own weight. So it's not excessive. It's fine. It's still as efficient as I want to be. It's not getting carried away. Moving on, PJ listened carefully to what the boy said before responding. I'm sorry I put you in a difficult position, he said. This is why we aren't supposed to talk too much about the future. And the let's see, the whole the whole the whole idea being the big trope in time travel stories and etc. movies and books and etc. being that, oh, if you tell people too much about the future, you can mess it up, and that's like one of the recurring major themes from Back to the Future, which is like the most iconic time travel story ever, or whatever. So yeah, it's a trope that you always have to be aware of, and it's uh, the the thing about it is in golf it becomes sort of not what's the word? It becomes, well, it's like I was talking about earlier, how uh, in a scenario where you envision golf the way it depicts itself, there's no reason why nobody wouldn't be able to know everything about their future selves they could ever possibly want to know. And so how does what does that mean here for despotism? Well, we can just say that because this is a mission back to the past to before the invention of time travel, they have to obey the more conventional rules of time traveling, like you see in most, like the tropes you see in most time travel stories about don't tell people too much about their future. So we can obey that, and we're also getting away with it. I'm also getting away with it because I hadn't written golf yet at the time that I wrote this chapter, so it wasn't really a thing for anybody to have a concern about. It's just in retrospect you start to see things that maybe doesn't quite line up perfectly, but doesn't affect the story too much either, in my opinion. What does being married to her make me anyway? The first man? Actually, the husband of the President of the United States is called the first gentleman. I know it sounds weird, but it's right. I think I shoehorned in that line because of a review I got from Chapter 2, specifically to answer a question specifically posed by that review about what the husband of the president is called if we were to ever have a woman president, or maybe someday we'll have a gay president. I kind of don't see that happening anytime soon, but you never know. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that right now. So yeah, I don't want to get into that right now. So gotta keep this commentary family friendly. I know it sounds weird, but it's right. He stopped to finish the final section of screws before continuing. I also just don't want to even touch any uh, topic that's remotely political. Basically, at least ones that I feel like are really sensitive right now. I just don't even want to go anywhere on really sensitive topics for people. So better to not even take a stance or let anybody know that I have a stance, and just leave it leave the story as its own thing. Don't let your political agenda affect your story. The story has to come first. I always say that. I really believe that, and I believe that's a big problem with some of the like movies that flop these days. Is that people don't understand that and don't follow that rule. If they did, I think that they'd see more success. Uh, and I'm not going to name names, but if if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So, moving on. He stopped to finish the final section of screws before continuing. Listen, even if it's awkward, you're going to have to push through it and talk to her. For all you know, she's probably just as worried about the exact same things. But I don't know what to say, Phineas exclaimed. You said you're best friends, right? Phineas nodded. Start with that. Besides, I haven't popped out of existence or anything, so we haven't messed up the future yet. Ooh, foreshadowing. I know nobody knows it's foreshadowing for something that's not going to happen until clear in the second half of Gulf. In fact, I am sure I didn't even know that I was foreshadowing anything when I wrote this chapter. But it turns out that I was foreshadowing anyways, just because I wanted to reference Quantum Boogaloo, because popping out of existence is a thing that Quantum Boogaloo put on the table as uh, a rule for for time travel in the canon. And if I didn't mention it before, I'll mention it here that I wanted to at least to as much of it as much of an extent as I could follow the same time travel rules from It's About Time, the episode where they go back to visit dinosaurs, and the episode Quantum Boogaloo. Uh, I wanted to try to follow the same time travel rules as established in those episodes. And it turned out to be really hard because there's conflicting time travel rules between those two episodes and inside the episodes themselves. And so it's just a mess. The it's because the episodes, and because Phineas and Ferb as a show is trying to be a comedy first and lighthearted. It's not trying to like uh, make this really groundbreaking sci-fi portrayal of how time travel works. You know, they're just going for the jokes. They probably take it a bit too far in some of the episodes of Milo Murphy's Law, where time travel happens, and I've talked to some people about this who feel like they take it a bit too far, and it loses some of its suspension of disbelief and loses some of its credibility, and you kind of don't have the same investments in Milo Murphy's Law that you have in Phineas and Ferb. But that's kind of a rampant case. That's true a lot about a lot of things about Milo Murphy's Law compared to Phineas and Ferb. It's just hard to get the same level of investment in Milo Murphy's Law as we all had in Phineas and Ferb. I don't know if it's just because Phineas and Ferb came first, but I think it is because Phineas and Ferb is actually genuinely better at uh, the important storytelling principles that it uses than Milo Murphy is at its storytelling. But anyways, that's its entire own video that I would have to carefully pen in order to uh, express my thoughts on that adequately, and that now is not the time for that. Because I'm just uh, I get jumbled up in my thoughts when I'm speaking. It's a lot easier for me to write something and then read a script later on to if I want to be really if I want to express very complex thoughts and ideas. So maybe someday expect a video essay from me on why Phineas and Ferb is better than Milo's Murphy's Law. Or not. I would have to learn so much about video editing in order to make something like that. That would be a lot of work. I'm not going to do a project like that anytime soon, unless I suddenly have a lot of free time on my hands. And I mean a lot is what it would take. So where were we? Listen, even if that's awkward, you're just gonna have to push through it and talk to her. Yep, we read that. But it's still good advice from me, who has been a very awkward person in the past and still in some ways is, but who has learned to live with it. That's my advice. Push through the awkwardness and do what you got to do anyways. What I always like to say is it's only awkward if you make it awkward. If you don't make it awkward, it stops being awkward. But some people can't help it and they make it awkward on themselves. I had to live with some people that were so awkward that literally everything they did and said was just so, I don't even know. Um, but it built up my tolerance for awkwardness by quite a lot. And I could tell you some stories, but they would probably be somewhat inappropriate. And which are the best kinds of stories, but not they're not for this time and place, unfortunately. So here we were. Haven't popped out of existence or anything, so we haven't messed up the future yet. Yes, that's where we were. The young genius took a deep breath. Okay, he said, focusing his eyes. Carpe diem. That's the spirit. PJ leapt off the boy's shoulders. You'll be fine. Trust me. By the way, BT dubs, I just want to say this line encapsulates everything that, in my opinion, uh, Actor Age got wrong about Phineas and Isabella's relationship. Phineas will carpe diem. If he develops feelings for Isabella when he gets older, he's going to act on them. He's not going to do what he does in Actor Age and wait until somebody tells him that it, wait until Beljeet, of all people, tells him on the day that she's going off to college that she's had feelings for him. All these, no way, that is not Phineas. He would totally make the first move as soon as he realized what his feelings uh, were for her. He would totally go out and seize the day and tell her how he felt. In my opinion, and that's just me telling the writers of Phineas and Ferb that I think I know their characters better than they do, and what kind of a fan would do that. But there you have it. That's my opinion on the subject. Oh, and by the way, most fan fiction writers also get that wrong too. They also do make the exact same mistake as Actor Age. That's the spirit. PJ left off the boy's shoulders. You'll do just fine, trust me. Isabella had been unusually quiet today, and the girls noticed. Nobody said anything while they finished putting up the curtains for the stage, but when that task was completed, their curiosity got the better of them. What troubles thee, fearless leader? Voiced Gretchen, and the others quickly gathered in to listen and provide support. It's Phineas, Isabella confided upon seeing nobody was nearby to eavesdrop. He finally knows. A gasp rippled through the group. The nose knows? Don't you ever call him that again, Addison. Sorry, the wisecracker said. Couldn't pass up the opportunity. A few others giggled. I think that probably got a couple of chuckles out of my readers as well. The nose knows. What a good line. So, what's wrong? Millie asked. Don't tell us he turned you down. Isabella sighed. Well, not exactly. It's more like things just got really awkward and complicated, and now he isn't talking to me. You mean he's avoiding you? Isabella shook her head. No, He isn't talking to me, as in he pulls a Ferb whenever I'm around. Oh, the girls nodded in understanding. All together, their countenances went from concerned to relieved. You actually had us worried there for a moment. This is serious, Isabella chided. My chance of being with Phineas is in peril. Why are you all acting like you know something I don't? A few of the others snickered. Chief, there's nothing for you to worry about, Gretchen explained. It's obvious that Phineas is in shock. Love shock. Love shock? Did you seriously just call it that? I had fun writing this conversation now. This is so silly. This almost belongs in praise of romance. It's so bonkers and just being silly about love. And if anything, the Fireside Girls should know a little bit more and give a little bit better advice to Isabella than this, but they don't because it's fun and because they're just kids. Love shock? Did you seriously just call it that? Gretchen's right, Ginger squeaked. We learned all about it from getting our How Boys Think patch. I don't remember getting that patch, Isabella said. You were sick that day. Like, it's, such, it's it's ridiculous how there's a patch for, or or we could basically get away with explaining it as there's a patch for anything in the Fireside Girls uh, program. we can we can pretty much invent any patch name we want, and the audience will probably just accept it because that's exactly how the show treats it. And I actually did go through Boy Scouts when I was younger, and got quite a few merit badges myself. And and so because of that background, I think it's extra ridiculous, but it still makes it all the funnier. And not to say that Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are the same thing. There's some differences. Well, there were when I was going through the program, but still, both of them are entirely different beasts altogether from how the Fireside Girls are. How much they cartoonify the Girl Scout trope or stereotype or whatever you want to call it. Also, I just really love that line. I don't remember getting that patch, Isabella said. You were sick that day. Like, oh, no wonder. No wonder she doesn't remember getting this ridiculously named Fireside Girls patch. She was sick that day. Like, well, what? Sure, why not? So it's even more ridiculous than the patch name. Isabella being sick that day. That's well, I don't know if ridiculous is the right word, but it's just the explanation itself is so driving this conversation totally off the rails, and it just continues to get, and that's the whole point, is making this off the rails and just making their advice just completely silly, just for the fun of it. Isabella cleared her head. Okay, what do I do? Gretchen took the troop leader by the arm. First of all, you have to give him some space. You don't want to be all in his face, or you'll push him away. But don't give him too much space either, or he'll get comfortable and never commit to anything. You have to give him just the right amount of space. How much is the right amount of space? Isabella asked. The girls ignored her inquiry. Also, this is this. No, I'll save it. I'll save it until we get to the end. The next thing you want to do is never engage him in conversation, Addison expounded. He's going to need some time to come to accept you. If you find yourselves together, look for an escape route right away. Prematurely talking to him will only confuse him, and make him take longer to sort out his feelings for you. You have to be strong and hold out to the end. Isn't this just terrible advice? That sounds counterintuitive, Isabella thought aloud. It seems like shutting off communication is the last thing I should do. The last thing you should do, Ginger continued as if Isabella hadn't spoken, and also to make this ironic transition by repeating the exact same thing as the previous speaker just said, but for a totally different purpose, context, and meaning. The last thing you should do, Isabella continued, as if Isabella hadn't even spoken, is talk to him. After you've followed steps 1 and 2, this is the most important and final step. Go talk to him, and he'll be like putty in your hands. Isabella looked perplexed. So, what you're saying is, after making an effort to not talk to him, I should go talk to him? The girls all nodded as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Look, all you girls did was give me vague and conflicting advice. That didn't even help me at all. That didn't even help me at all. uh, Vague and conflicting advice on romance. Because why not? Wasn't that so fun to read though? Well, no one said it was an exact science. He'll do just fine, Chief. And also, just the idea that maybe the How Boys Think patch is itself uh, just as nonsensical as this entire conversation, and just as vague and conflicting of a of a patch, or of what you learn by and experience by earning that patch. Anyways, it's all for the lulz. Anyways, you'll do just fine, Chief. Gretchen smiled confidently. Holly gave her a friendly elbow in the rib cage. Holly gave her, Gretchen, a friendly elbow in the rib cage. Ow! She yelped, grimacing. Oh, and one more thing. See, that's implied by it being the same paragraph, that the speaker is still Gretchen. Oh, and one more thing. The troop and I were wondering, she began with an encompassing wave of her hand. The group hunched in. The group hunched over in giggly anticipation as she did so. Really trying to set the stage here for the set up the joke. Yes, Isabella prompted. The troop and I were wondering, Gretchen carefully articulated, when you do talk to Phineas, can we, I mean, would it be okay if... She leaned over and whispered in her ear. Isabella exploded. No, you cannot watch! Because... No, remember, don't explain the jokes. Everybody gets it. I don't have to explain it. Jeez. No, you cannot watch. Just laugh and enjoy it. That's that sounds like something girls would do. I don't know. I'm not a girl, so but it sounds like something girls would do, and or at least it's how girl stereotypes are portrayed in cartoons uh, of kids not really knowing very much of how and going through their first experiences of exploring and navigating the uncharted waters of love. And yeah, it's awkward and naive, and they're learning the rules for the first time, the rules of the game of love. Okay, okay, she, Gretchen, held up her hands in surrender. Just thought we'd ask. After all, we could keep Irving away. And Irving has proven problematic for them in a couple of episodes, it seems like. What what episodes am I thinking of? There's one episode where they tie up Irving because he's like spying on Isabella and oh yeah, it's the episode where Ferb goes to the dentist and Phineas and Isabella have the afternoon all to themselves, and it's about to be interrupted by Irving and the Fireside Girls come and kidnap him, just to give Isabella her little day with Phineas. So I think that was the reference I had in mind when I wrote that line. Yep, that's it. All right. Phineas stood on the fully completed stage with a microphone held to his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. Laddies and lasses. Phineas, this is a pattern from the show. Phineas always has some long-winded and whimsical introduction to whenever he's giving a speech in front of a crowd, and all the way from the very first episode of Roller Coaster when he's speaking to the kids and introducing them to the roller coaster before they all get on for their ride. Well, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. You know, he just always has a long-winded, whimsical introduction. So being true to that aspect of the character. Welcome to the first annual PNF 4th of July celebration. Swimsuit contest of swimwear brought to you by Random Swimwear. Uh, reference to the Klimploon ultimatum brought to you by Random Swimwear. I I think that that was a recent new episode, recently aired new episode when I wrote this chapter, so it was a relevant reference at the time. Perhaps it has not aged well, but who is to say? Not I, because I remember far too many references from Phineas and Ferb. Almost instantly, it seemed, a crowd started to gather around the stage to watch. Because that's the Phineas and Ferb magic, everything always turns out well for them. And so a crowd is already gathering, just because it's Phineas and Ferb. Why not? Crowd. Kicking off this year's contest, we are privileged to have this year's swimwear modeled by none other than, that's right, you guessed it, like who could possibly guess this? All 43 presidents of the United States. Someone in the audience questioned him. Oh, off screen, somebody questioned him. That's correct. 43. Remember, Grover Cleveland was president twice. Oh, so if you go look up the order as of 2016 of the count of presidents, there was 44. So why did he say 43? It's because Grover Cleveland was elected. Then when he ran for a second term, he lost. He ran again 4 years later and got reelected. So he was president twice, um, out of order. So there's been 44 presidents, but actually 43 individuals have been president. Uh, in case you didn't have your presidential history background and were wondering what the heck does that line mean, that's what it meant. Apparently, someone in the audience who questioned Phineas thought or remembered the statistic or somehow that there was 44 presidents, and that's why he said that. But I would be honestly very surprised if anybody had caught that line. But because I wanted to be a smarty pants know it all, I wrote that line all the same. Phineas put on an enthusiastic smile. But before we get to the highlight of our show, we're going to start with a special reading performance. Today celebrates the birth of our independence as a nation, which happened with the signing of the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. To honor that pivotal moment in history, please put your hands together for Baljeet Tajindler. Tajindler. How do you even say Baljeet's last name? Is it even ever actually said in the show? I don't know if it is. How do you pronounce the J? Is it a Y pronunciation? Is it silent? I don't really. I'm not that familiar with Indian names. Beljeet. Let's go with Beljeet Tindler. Maybe the J is silent. I don't know. Well, if the J is silent, then wouldn't it just be Belit? Belit? That sounds no. You guys, I have no idea. I should have looked that up. I should have caught that and looked that up before doing this recording, and now I have no idea, and it's going to be super embarrassing for me. No, it's not going to be embarrassing for me. Nobody's ever going to watch this video, anyways. Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? Let's not even worry about it. Who is actually listening to my voice right now? I don't know if this video is ever going to get a single view ever, but it would be a pleasant surprise if it did. If anybody does actually watch this video and actually makes it this far, we're like what, an hour and a half, 2 hours, I don't know, an hour and a half in, and you're still listening, then first off, thank you. Second off, Okay, you caught me. I am embarrassed. I don't even know how to pronounce Beljeet's last name. You got me. I am not a true Phineas and Ferb fan. I will go and hang my shame cartons like Beljeet when he gets a bad grade. The shame cartons will not hang themselves. Oh my gosh. Who will be reading the Declaration of for us and for Ferb Fletcher, who will be translating, since nobody seems to understand what it says. Yeah, the Declaration is wordy and hard to understand if you haven't read it before. The audience cheered and applauded as Beljeet and Ferb appeared on stage. Phineas placed the microphone on a stand between them, then exited behind the curtains. Beljeet cleared his throat. when it, Nope, Beljeet's voice is too hard. I'm not going to try. I'm just going to read. For the sake of protecting myself, my sanity, and sparing you all of you who have made it this far, actually listening to this video, we're gonna. I'm not going to use Beljeet's voice here. It's too long of a too long of a chunk of text coming up. This this what we're about to do is even worse than uh, the the part in that most stories all go through where they just have a long explanation part that always slows the story down. And it's like it's a necessary evil in storytelling that you have to have uh, some some explanation of going on or whatever. Like, Lord of the Rings has to start by explaining what the rings of power are, uh, even though the story itself isn't actually kicking into action. You just have to have that background knowledge, and so the yeah, yeah, this is even worse because it's totally unnecessary. This is the one time I break my rule because it's for the sake of having the Declaration of Independence written in the story, included in the story, just for the hope that maybe somebody who's never read it before will read it for the first time and be more cultured and educated on what the Declaration is. That is the sole purpose of me including. I didn't even include the whole declaration, to be honest. I just included like it's just the first couple paragraphs of the actual declaration itself. But it's the most important part. And so I wanted anybody who was reading this fan fiction, I wanted to sneak in excerpts from the first couple paragraphs. Oh, not excerpts, the entire first couple paragraphs of the declaration and trick people into reading them, hopefully. Because as a true-blooded American, I think that the Declaration of Independence is one of, if not the most important founding documents, and I think all Americans should educate themselves on it, read it, know about it, know what it says, be familiar with it, and understand what it means. And so this is me trying to help people with that. Like, I literally take a sentence, re-summarize it, uh, summarize it, explain what it actually means because it's hard to understand when you're first reading the Declaration. It's old, windy language of the uh, 18th century, and so understandable that people have a hard time uh, translating it to modern parlance. But I do that and try to get the meaning across, and also kind of make it a little bit funny. But anyways, let's begin. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary. I'm also so glad that I'm uh, releasing this video on July 4th because it's so timely. Here we are reading the Declaration of Independence in a YouTube video in a Phineas and Ferb fan fiction on the 4th of July. Isn't that nice? It's like I planned it that way. Wow. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve, the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. He paused, and Ferb translated. We're writing the Declaration of Independence, he stated. That's basically what that sentence means. We're writing the Declaration of Independence. The sentence says, we're writing the Declaration of Independence. Long-winded and wordy. Beljeet continued, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form, as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. What does that mean? People deserve to be free, so we're making our own government, Ferb summarized. So pithy. Honestly, that's a really good summary of that very long sentence. But people are a little bit more familiar with that sentence because, we've all heard the phrase life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That's like the most well-known, popular is not the right word, but well-known, the single most well-known line from the entire Declaration is right there. Prudence indeed, read Beljeet, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. You have to have a really good reason to make your own government, said Ferb. Beljeet, who was really getting into it, now read with gusto. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Oh, there it is. Roll credits. Under absolute despotism. We said the thing. And now we all know where the story gets its title from, in case you didn't know before, or in case you haven't watched National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, because this line is the line he says right before he goes to steal the Declaration of Independence. Under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Ferb explained, "We are going to revolt, Mother England." The crowd cheered as if expecting it to be over, and Phineas entered the stage again. Because doesn't that sound like an endpoint? It kind of does, so why wouldn't the crowd think that it was over? But really, that's like the end of the second paragraph. The actual Declaration of Independence is just barely getting started. But I knew as well as anybody that even though I wanted the Declaration of Independence to be written word for word in the story, if I did the whole thing, that would really be too much. The two first paragraphs are the most important parts of the Declaration. So I included them word for word. And after that, I knew I was going to lose too many people's attention if I went on beyond that. And I didn't want that to happen. So yeah, we cut it off there. Phineas entered the stage again. Thank you, he said. Let's hear it for Beljeet and Ferb. The crowd applauded and whistled. But we did not even make it all the way through the second paragraph, Beljeet told Phineas out of the corner of his mouth as he waved. Phineas shooed him off. Now, without further ado, the moment you've all been waiting for is here, Phineas announced over the microphone. The fashion show! But before we open up the runway, allow me to introduce the three judges that will be judging our models and their fashion. First up, he's cute, he's tough, he's got an evil alien for a nemesis. Can I get a warm welcome for Meep? Meep waved from his seat with his ever adorable Meep. The audience cheered loud as ever. Our second judge hails from the city hall, where he works as a tour guide to help uninformed citizens in need, but most people know him as Don. The one city hall tour guide guy that was only in one episode, but was so quirky of a character that he instantly became memorable, at least partially because that was a recently aired new episode at the time that I wrote this story, this chapter. So it was good enough to make the reference and have a goofy, quirky guy that is a very unimportant background relegated character, but stood out just enough in the one episode he was in that people would probably remember his voice and be able to play his lines in his voice in their inner mind as they were reading the story. The second judge gave a fancy twirl of the hands to the audience, and last but not least, introduced Phineas. She's spunky and sassy with a sharp sense of fashion. Yay. For alliteration. Spunky, sassy, sharp sense of fashion. The self-proclaimed goth, Vanessa Doofenshmirtz. Vanessa acknowledged the cheering audience with a simple, "Hey, how's it going?" That's Vanessa's go-to line because that's the line she says to Ferb in the episode where she and Ferb very first meet, the one where uh, Phineas and Isabella, or no, Isabella got her tonsils removed, and Ferb and Phineas are trying to make her the biggest, best ice cream bowl ever, but they get their plans switched with the space laserinator. I love that episode. I love every episode from season one. It's just so. Every episode from season one is just dripping with so much uniqueness and character. I love every episode in season one in a special way that just isn't the same for the later seasons, even though I still love them as well. The first season is just special. Every episode is so different and varied. And hey, how's it going is what Vanessa says when at that moment when Ferb gets the plans mixed up. Ferb, I don't get it. You're always so focused. I was weak. Just because Vanessa said, "Hey, how's it going?" And so I always have her use that line. Whenever, well, not always, but when it seems like a good idea, I use that line for her. There you have it, folks. Phineas addressed the crowd. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to our judges. Let the contest begin. The microphone sank into the stage as Phineas departed to the loud applause. I think now's as good of any a time to explain my inspiration for this Phineas and Ferb project. It's kind of a weird project. Like, there's no roller coasters involved, no crazy uh, gadgets or inventions going on. It's like a swimsuit fashion show. It kind of seems really weird and not their usual thing. And plus, they already did a fashion show episode with one time where Phineas and Ferb introduced their own line of clothes, and it's just their clothes that they always wear every day, but for some reason it becomes a huge hit. So they've already done the fashion thing. Why are they doing that again? I don't know. I wanted it to be somehow related to the themes of 4th of July, presidents, America, U.S. history, etc. So uh, I think that and the episode Mom's Birthday, when Doofenshmirtz's scheme is to, well, to erase everything that he dislikes, but for some reason his security is the animatronic robots of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. That episode is probably what really inspired this idea for Phineas and Ferb to make animatronic robots of every single president uh, of in U.S. history. Like, but I don't know why that the somehow it seems just quirky enough for that to be something they would do, even though it's not, like thrill ride related or anything like that. It's not a roller coaster. It's not a giant tire swing or flying quarter machine rides at the mall. It's but it still seems just weird enough to still be a Phineas and Ferb thing to do, I guess. Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe my view is uh what's the word, Mitt? Not scoped. That's my view is skewed. That's the word. How did I get skewed and scoped mixed up? I don't know. See, this is what I'm talking about. Not eloquent in speech, much better in writing. I could have just typed, I could have just sat there and waited until I remembered the word was skewed, not scoped, and then typed it. And none of you would have ever realized that it took me like 30 seconds to try to think of the word skewed. And this happens to me all the time. I always have this problem of not remembering the exact word that I want to use. And I take such pride in my vocabulary. So I don't know why this is an ongoing issue for me. Always has been my whole life. I always struggle to find the exact word I want. If it's kind of a rare out there word that I don't use super often, or sometimes it is a really common word, but I still can't remember it anyways. I don't know. I think there's even a disorder for that, a name for that disorder of people who it's so bad for them that they can't remember the words that they want to say. There's actually a disorder name for that, but I don't remember that name either. How ironic is that? Pretty ironic, pretty flat out ironic, to be honest. Moving on, Don the tour guide spoke first as the curtain parted. Our first model is an animatronic robot of the first president of the United States, the one affectionately called by many the father of the country, George Washington. Here comes George down the catwalk now, and it looks like he's sporting the modest gentleman look. From behind the curtain, the first robot emerged with a long powdered wig and a prominent nose. The George Washington robot wore a loose-fitting tunic of white and gray. The long sleeves had neatly pressed cuffs. Wearing a swim garment that literally looks like it's from the 18th century, Vanessa took over. The leg breeches and covered arms bring us back to a simpler age when it was improper to have more than the hands and face exposed, and reminds us all of why nobody has worn that stuff in over 200 years. Let's hear what Mr. Washington has to say, Don verbalized. The robot paced the length of the walkway and pose. I cannot tell a lie. My swimsuit is too bodilicious for you. uh, there, there you go. The effects of the Abraham Lincoln and George Washington robots from Doofenshmirtz's scheme uh, in Linda's Birthdays episode, still having their influence rub off on me. I the 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 banter that those two robots have while they're battling with Agent P or whatever was such a funny thing to me. I just really liked that aspect of the episode. Like, I think one time the way Agent P escapes is he makes the chandelier fall on them, but the chandelier misses them. But because it has candles, the candles start to heat up the wax skins of the animatronic robots, and that's how he escapes. Is they melt, and for some reason that makes their grip weaken and or whatever. That's not how it works in Terminator, but whatever. And the where I was going with that is the robots have banter later where they're like, "Your breath smells like candles," or something like that. I thought that banter was hilarious because they're using like well-known uh, famous lines or phrases that uh, from those presidents, but they're kind of making that cartoon spin on them, and I really like that aspect of those episodes, and I'm kind of doing the same thing here. Originally, when I was writing, I wanted to have a little one-liner zinger for every single president. But then I started to realize so many presidents aren't that well known from clear back in U.S. history and don't have any really well-known phrases that stick out that I could parody quite so well, and that that kind of put a damper on that idea. So I only did it a couple times. Just only used the very best lines out of all the ones I could think of, and that started with George Washington's "I cannot tell a lie. My swimsuit is too delicious for you." What does that say about how bad the other lines I tried to think up were if that was one of the best ones I came up with? Anyways, it went quiet. It went quiet briefly as the crowd looked stunned. Kind of a weird line, but kind of maybe that's its comedic aspect, is how weird it is. "I don't know what to make of that," Don commented. "What do you have to say, Meep?" Meep thought for a moment. "Meep! Couldn't have put it better myself," replied Don. George Washington turned and made his way back to the curtain, leaving the crowd cheering. There you have it, everyone. George Washington. Up next, the great lawyer and statesman from Boston. Get ready to have your socks knocked off by our second president, John Adams. PJ watched contentedly from backstage with Phineas, Ferb, and their friends, never ceasing to be amazed. It was a chance to watch history with his own eyes. Kind of a little hint of where the story is going, but especially of the ideas I had down the road with golf. The ideas being, or at least not necessarily with golf, but my overall scope of ideas for what Phineas and Ferb would really look like in the future. Because Quantum Boogaloo teased just a little bit that uh, they're doing these amazing achievements. You know, Phineas is in Geneva for his award, and Ferb is at the Camp David Accords, according to Linda, 20 years in the future. So they're accomplishing amazing things, and you can only imagine what they're doing 20 years in the future. But probably world changing and history changing, and by that point, they've got to be pretty famous. And you know, Irving's blogs probably preserved their history as kids, and that so their story's probably well known by the time they're famous in the future. And so that's hinted at with this sentence here, that PJ is watching history unfold with his own eyes, uh, because in my head canon, Phineas and Ferb's story is well known by the time they become famous scientists or whatever or whatever they become in the future. They're probably scientists and probably a whole bunch of other things too. And so everybody would know that as kids they built roller coasters and did stuff. And so here PJ is watching history with his own eyes. That's all the headcanon that is behind that one short little sentence. He had heard the stories about how they used to seize every day with a bold new project, of course, but he never imagined that the projects they tackled were of this scale. So almost like the stories don't even do it justice, which we know because we're the fans who actually watch the show. They had built all these robots of presidents past and present, along with the stage, and organized a fashion show for swimwear, all in the course of an afternoon. What really amazed him is that they weren't they weren't doing it for money. I think that should be what really amazed him, was that they weren't doing it for money. So technically a typo. Whoops. Uh, we're just going to forget about it. Was that they weren't doing it to make money or to show off or anything like that. They were just having fun. Excuse me, being kids. Phineas was all over the place, now sharing a joke with Ferb, who was up in the rafters operating the lights, now helping Baljeet and the Abraham Lincoln robot find a missing sandal, now breaking up an argument between Buford and Isabella regarding whether a lime green top or a plum colored top better matched Woodrow Wilson's swim trunks. Under Phineas's leadership, everything went smoothly. Phineas had led the way in accepting PJ into the circle of friends, too. They'd all accepted him right away, except Buford, who was briefly skeptical when he first noticed the false mustache. I don't know any other kids that have a mustache. In parentheses. Phineas had even given him responsibility over keeping the presidential models in sequential order and final checking that the robots were fully functioning and clothed properly. The James Madison robot had tried to use its socks as a hat before sending them out on the runway. I think that's my J.K. Rowling influence rubbing off there, having those throwaway lines of details that are just silly. That's a J.K. Rowling trademark stamp. If you read the Harry Potter books, you see that all the time. Having those random silly details for comedic, short comedic, just for the comedy, yeah. Comedic, I don't know what's. Despite technically still being on a mission to be protecting them, PJ allowed himself to relax as he worked with the kids, and to his surprise, he discovered that for the first time in a long time, he was having fun. Ah, yay, character growth. Here we go. It's starting now. Hey, PJ, Phineas shouted from the opposite end of the curtain, rousing him from his thoughts. Did you get Isabella's order for 3 more blue towels? They're on their way, he called back, grinning at the boy's contagious enthusiasm. He turned back out to watch the robot of John F. Kennedy take the runway. And here's JFK, Don the tour guide was announcing, the beloved president whose time in office ended prematurely at the hands of fate and an assassin's bullets. JFK the robot strutted before the crowd before pulling its shirt over its synthetic shoulders, unveiling a masculine torso with some rather well-defined muscles. Ask not what your swimsuit can do for you, the robot uttered. Rather, ask what you can do for your swimsuit. JFK gave a final flex and about-faced. That was my best line that I could think of, spoofing out of all the lines that I tried to come up with. So of course I kept that, and also of course I kept it because the tiny little connection of assassin's bullets right there. That's kind of a connection to the theme of the story about an assassination. Yeah. So those were both reasons why I went with that. It was my strongest little joke here from the entire presidential robot fashion swimsuit fashion project. Yeah, such a mouthful. Such a weird project. Not as weird as the Toothlaloons. Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started on that episode. Why does that episode exist? Toothlaloons? Tooth-themed roller coaster rides? So weird. Phineas and Ferb is weird sometimes. Still great though. But yeah, that's a weird episode. Ask me about it sometime. That is such a weird episode. Are you all right, Vanessa? Don asked his fellow judge. What? Oh, yeah, Vanessa breathed, putting her eyeballs back while fanning herself with her hand. That was just a good swimsuit is all. Very fashionable. Meep, Meep commented. Well, whatever it was, said Don, looking over the whistling audience. The crowd sure liked it. So the scuba diver says, that's just crabby, Jeremy finished. And he joined Candace in a round of laughter. Yay, punchlines with no setup. Crabby, Candace repeated. That is so funny. The two of them had been spending the afternoon together strolling around the park, taking in the sights, participating in some of the games. It had been pleasant. But at that moment, Candace noticed the sounds of a gathered crowd. One look was all she needed for her busting reflex to activate. Do you see that? She asked her boyfriend. Phineas and Ferb must have built that stage. It wasn't here earlier. What are they doing? Jeremy looked. It appears they're hosting a swimsuit contest. Cool. You want to go watch? More like I want to go bust, Candace said, stomping off. There she goes again, he said, smiling to himself. Hey, where's Susie? Dun dun dun. Foreshadowing. There's the hint, you guys. I gave hints on who the assassin's identity was. Well, they were cleverly veiled, but they were there. Like who could not even Sherlock Holmes could have guessed Susie's identity from this hint alone, but it was at least supposed to be uh getting to you to remember Susie exists. So, still technically a hint about who the assassin's identity was. Meanwhile, Candace already had her phone pressed to her ear. Mom, she said loudly, to be heard over the noise of the people in the background. Are you and Dad at the park yet? Yes, dear, and we've been at the pie eating contest, Linda said, a dreamy look overcoming her face. So many pies! Blueberry, raspberry, apple, key lime, dunkleberry, cherry. In a whoosh, Candace was already at her mother's side, cutting her off. You've got to come see! Phineas and Ferb built a stage and they're holding a swimsuit contest! She grabbed her mother's arm and began to drag her along. But what about the pie? For some reason, Linda is so obsessed with pie. That's like her one weird obsession, her one weird quirk. Otherwise, she's a pretty normal human being. Except that she was also used to be a pop star. And except that she also apparently has a degree in astrophysics that she keeps a secret from everyone. What is that about? But yeah, Linda can be intriguing at times. 3 rows of swimsuit-spangled presidents stood on bleachers atop the stage, waiting for the winner's name to be read. Phineas stood at the microphone with an envelope in hand. Swimsuit-spangled presidents. Of course, I had to use the word spangled somewhere in a story that takes its title from the Declaration of Independence. Like, except the Star Spangled Banner isn't even the Declaration of Independence. It's a totally different thing. It's a song. It's not, but still spangled. It's like an American word. You can't think of the word spangled if you're an American and not think of the Star Spangled Banner and the Fourth of July. They're just all loosely connected to the overall theme of Independence Day. So yeah, I had to use the word spangled there. Swimsuit spangled presidents. Before we announce this year's winner, he said, I just wanted to thank you all for coming today. Now, the winner of today's 4th of July celebration swimsuit contest of swimwear, brought to you by Random Swimwear, is... From the side, Ferb thumped out a drum roll on a full drum set. Phineas ripped open the envelope and looked at the ballot inside. And the winner is... Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The winner is President William Howard Taft. I don't know how that man could win a swimsuit contest, but the ballots never lie. uh, sarcasm, the ballots never lie. As if there's never been a an election that's been contested in history. Spoiler alert, it happens almost every election, especially ever since 2000. It's happened almost every election. And also, on another note, President William Howard Taft. If you know your U.S. history, you know that he's famous for being fat, and that's the joke. He was fat, and his political opponents regularly made use of that fact to get at him. He was known for being fat, so that's the irony. That's the joke. The Taft robot standing behind Phineas and to his right was overtaken with surprise and leapt for joy. I don't believe it! I want... Oh wait, he's a robot. He's supposed to be using his robot. Right? We already established that. I don't believe it. I want... I don't know. It's not quite the same. The effect isn't the same. Needs a little bit of emotion in his voice. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Pick which one you like better. Emotional voice or robotic tone. The corpulent robot danced exultantly, showered by red, white, and blue confetti. Everyone clapped heartily for a full minute until the curtains closed, and Phineas excused the audience. Good work, girls, Isabella congratulated backstage, on yet another successful Phineas and Ferb project. Frog alert! Whispered. Frog alert! Millie whispered from her rear frantically. In parentheses, frog alert was a code for a boy one of them likes is heading this way. For after all, frogs are the symbol of a prince waiting to blossom with a kiss. Don't ask me where the idea for that came up. It's too weird. Nobody's going to understand it. Just roll with it. Frog alert. The Fireside Girls have that for their weird code word as their weird code word because they run like they're the military or something, and they think using code words is cool. The girls turned and saw Phineas approaching. What was unusual, however, was that Ferb wasn't with him. Hey guys, he said a little nervously, with a heavy glance toward Isabella. Can I talk to Isabella? Alone? The girls giggled uncontrollably, making the solemn Phineas look even more out of place. Gretchen gave Isabella a soft push to the front and led the rest of the troop away. Let the awkwardness commence. This is the most important scene in this entire chapter. It's what it's all been leading up to. Hey, Phineas said once they were in the clear. Hey, Isabella echoed. Wow, could I have said that any more unenthusiastically? Well, let's see. Yeah, they're supposed to be awkward, so I guess it's not enthusiastic. They're just going, hey, hey. Yeah, that makes sense. I should know this. Like I wrote it. I should know this well enough to know how to read my own dialogues. Like, come on, what's wrong with me? I've been going for a long time. I'm getting tired. That's all there is. Well, all that's my excuse. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Hey, uh, right, we're going with awkward, not enthusiastic. Awkward. Hey, Phineas said once they were in the clear. Hey, Isabella echoed. There we go. Very awkward. So, Phineas rubbed the back of his neck and looked at the stage. So, Isabella wrapped a hand around her elbow and looked at the ground. Phineas snapped to attention. Did you say something? What? No, I didn't say anything. It went quiet again as the two looked for the words they wanted to say. Super awkward. Which was the whole point. Phineas thought hard. What do girls like to hear? Compliments! He should give Isabella a compliment. Nice, he began, looking for something to say, but when nothing came to mind, he panicked. Stage, nice stage. Inwardly, Phineas slapped himself. Oh, thanks, Isabella said. The girls and I are getting pretty good at building them. Yeah, Phineas agreed. He looked Isabella over from head to toe, looking for something to compliment. I like your. He tried again, holding the your until he had a word ready. He was about to say shoes, but then again, did he really like her shoes? They looked like they were neatly kept and all, but it wasn't like he'd ever tried them. So could he truthfully say he liked them? Like that's Phineas's thought process. Should he say he likes the shoes based on their appearance, or should he not say that because he hasn't tried them on? And how can you say you like a pair of shoes if you don't try it? You know, be, because of the confuddled meaning that the word like can take in many different contexts. And so he's just confusing himself pointlessly because of that reason. So, how could he truthfully say he liked them? His eyes fell upon her hair. Did he like her hair? As much as the next person's, he supposed. It was black and long. Did he like black and long? Suddenly he didn't know. uh, in chapter 2, uh, for some reason, his Isabella's hair was what Phineas noticed at the very moment that he realized what PJ was trying to say to him, that he and Isabella got married in the future. I don't know why. I think that was just for lack of better idea of how to describe the situation and try to ex- uh, how to try to show, not tell, that Phineas is starting to actually have it sink in that Isabella has a crush on him, and that was kind of my way of explaining it. But it wasn't very convincing because just all of a sudden noticing that somebody is physically attractive to you all at once at one moment is kind of weird, kind of not very believable, and was just reflective of my uh, lack of experience and ability in writing, romance at this stage in my fan fiction career. But I had so far pretty much avoided it, except for the case of In Praise of Romance, which was specifically making fun of romance and especially romance tropes that I had seen so often in fan fictions that I had read. Uh, so as an author, as a writer, I had never been that. As a reader, I'd never been that interested in romance. I'd never been interested in writing about it. I was kind of disgruntled by how often I saw it in fan fiction, even when I didn't expect it because it wasn't in the summary, and I totally expected the story to go different ways. And all of a sudden, boom, shipping right there, smacking me in the face with it, with all the shipping that is going on everywhere, and it was just a lot for me to process. I and so yeah, me trying to finally do my own serious, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, serious uh, take on a Finabella ship, Finabella romance, a little to a small bit in this story, a small extent. My lack of experience and enthusiasm for writing romance shows a little bit. Um, Honestly, I'm surprised I did as well as I did overall. But yeah, there's some points that are less than well written. That's all I'm trying to say. The let's get back to this big joke that I'm setting up here, the Uranus joke. Oh geez, which I was so worried about. Was that going to be too inappropriate for this story? Let's talk about it when we actually read it. All right, keep going. Did he like long, black and long, as in hair? Suddenly he didn't know. Isabella blinked at Phineas's drawn-out syllable. It having dawned on her that Phineas was trying to give her a compliment. Oh no, he can't think of anything to compliment me on. I must look hideous from toiling on the project. Isabella made a mental note to check a mirror the first chance she got. Phineas was running out of time and breath. His yore was almost spent. He had to say something. Uranus. Yes, I like Uranus a lot. Like an avalanche, the words he'd just spoken came crashing down on him. Oh no, he thought desperately. No, no, no. Why did that have to be the first thing that popped into my head? I like your anus? That is literally the worst possible thing I could have said right there! Yeah, so kind of a dirty joke. I like dirty jokes, but I try to write clean fan fiction. I try to keep it family friendly, and this story was K plus, and so I I was more than a little, I was a lot worried when I wrote that, but I wanted to include that joke so badly because I'm an astronomy buff, so anything related to astronomy to throw in to my stories was just instantly going to be something I would want to do based on principle. And the thing is, I saw this skit one time about it was just like a comedy skit from a show that I saw once. Uh, that's all the background I'll give about it. Uh, and the skit was a couple just getting back from their first date, and the guy, it's the awkward what do you say on their doorstep as the guy's dropping off the girl at the end of their date, and for some reason he said he I stole this joke from this skit because it was a good joke. He said he did the exact same thing. He tries to compliment her, and also the skit on the skit they're having their inner thoughts in their inner voices is actually being played on loudspeakers so that you're seeing the actors on the stage and you're hearing their inner monologues going on, and so the guy's thinking, oh, I should compliment her, and then he actually says, I like your, and then his monologue kicks, his inner voice comes on the loudspeakers. Oh, I can't actually think of anything to compliment her on. What do I say? And then he says, you're up, I like you're up. Much cleaner version of the joke. I had to change it uh because I like astronomy, and because even though it's blatantly ripping off the joke, at least I changed something about it and can say it's mine. Just a little bit. I didn't steal. Only 1% of the joke was not mine stolen. All of the brilliant part of it, totally stolen. The I like your Rup or Uranus, whatever. Anyways, it's 1% mine, not 100% stolen, only 99% stolen. But it's such a great joke that I had to use it anyways, and that was one of the big things I really wanted to write in this chapter. It was just so I could get to use that joke, as inappropriate as it may be, because we've all been in sixth grade and we all had that lesson about the planets, and the teacher says Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and everybody giggles when the teacher says Uranus. So, if you're an astronomy buff like me, instead you just call it Uranus, but that's just as bad because that also has an inappropriate sounding sound in the name Uranus, but that's what most professional astronomers go with. And if they want to avoid even that, then they say Uranus, but very few people actually say Uranus, even though that's like the only way to say it without getting snickers from all the sixth grade level uh, minded people who still have the sixth grade level of sense of humor, like myself, for example. I still have that humor. I still snicker when people say Uranus. Anyways, he quickly moved on. Oh, he moved quickly to clarify his intentions. The planet, I mean, Uranus, the seventh planet. I'm just gonna keep uh, uh, pronouncing it Uranus because consistency for the story. Uranus, the seventh planet from the sun, it's a fascinating one, made up of mostly frozen ammonia and methane. And its biggest moon is Miranda. Actually, I don't think that's correct. I think Miranda is like its second or third biggest moon. Um, what is Uranus's biggest moon? Off the top of my head. Yeah, some astronomy buff I am. I can't even remember this trivial trivial detail. Let's see. Triton is Neptune's. So, oh, is it? Oh, it starts with a U. Yeah. Nope. Nope. Lost it. I don't know. Miranda. I'm pretty sure Miranda is like the second or third biggest moon. Actually, not the biggest. So I think that's incorrect. But Miranda is like my favorite moon from Uranus because I'm not hesitating because I don't know. I know why it's my favorite moon. I don't know if I want to actually say this because it's a potential spoiler for a potential future fan fiction that I might write. I'm considering it. There's a 10% chance that I might write this fan fiction someday. This idea that I have. So should I actually? All right. Without saying any spoilers, the reason I like Miranda is because it's got the largest scarps, as in cliff faces, in the entire solar system, like the tallest straight sheer cliff, like the tallest straight sheer drop. Uh, there's 9 kilometer tall scarps on Miranda, and so I remember watching this Discovery Channel documentary, whatever. Like the documentary's uh, gimmick was pretending that it was a tour guide trip from the future, and that watching the documentary was you going on this tour of the solar system and seeing all the tourist attractions the solar system has to offer, including the rings of Saturn, the Valles Marineris on Mars, the Grand Canyon of Mars, except it's 100 times bigger than Earth's Grand Canyon. Yeah, that one, the biggest canyon in the solar system. Mars has the biggest volcano in the solar system, Olympus Mons. So the this documentary style uh, Discovery Channel show, which was really just actually educational, but trying to be entertainment. So edutainmental, if you will, entertainment, educational, edutainmental, whatever. Yeah, that that was the show I watched one time. Maybe it was the Science Channel, Discovery Channel, same thing. Uh, and yeah, one of the tourist attractions on Uranus is Miranda's 9 kilometer tall scarp faces, sheer cliff drops. Uh, just imagine 9 kilometers. You stand on the top of the cliff, you look straight down, 9 kilometers drop straight down. How cool is that? Super cool. So that's why Miranda's my favorite moon of Uranus. Um, Umbra, that's it. I'm pretty sure. No, shoot. 45% of my mind wants to say Umbra is the name of Uranus's largest moon. Shh. All right, here we go. Screen recording. You're probably going to see this. I'm going to wiki it. Wikipedia. All right, here we go, everyone. Looking it up. This is what we have internet for you guys. It's the 21st century. It's 2020. It's 2022. Look up it whenever you have a question. Moons of Uranus. I also can't type. Umbriel. That's it. Umbriel is or is it Titania? Okay, yeah. Large moons. Go to it. Titania is the biggest. There you have it. I was way off. When I thought starts with a U, I was thinking Umbriel. So I was pretty close. Umbriel. But okay, Titania is the biggest one? Huh. All right. Apparently my astronomy trivia is not up to snuff. Uh I worry about myself sometimes, Candace. Anyways, where were we? Talking about Miranda. Miranda's got 9 kilometer tall cliffs. Super cool. Potential spoiler for a future Phineas and Ferb fan fiction that I'm 10% sure that I'm going to write, as in 10% chance that I'll write it after I finish Lovtopia. Low chance, but I am considering it. And that's a detail that is a spoiler. So now consider yourself spoiled, or contrarily, consider yourself in the know. How cool is that? You know something that nobody else would know about a story I might write someday, or maybe I won't. I'm not sure yet. I gotta finish Lovtopia first before I do anything else. All right. And its biggest moon is Miranda. Picking back up. As Phineas put on what he hoped was a convincing smile to cover his tracks, he made a mental note to look up whoever discovered and named Uranus. Uh, Uranus. Yep, we're being consistent here. Uranus. So he could know who to blame for everlastingly rendering that planet the butt of all jokes. Pun intended. Well, since we've already opened up this mechanic now, we're going to Google who named Uranus. Johann Bode. All right, there we go, everyone. It's all Johann Bode's fault that you can't make it through a sixth grade astronomy class, a sixth grade science class, without everybody snickering. Thank you, Johann Bode. Recommended the name Uranus, a Latinized version of the Greek god of the sky, Uranos. However, Name Uranus didn't gain full acceptance until the mid 1800s. The more you know, everybody. Oh, we're not reading reviews yet. Still back here. Okay, picking up where we left off. Uh, on her end, Isabella didn't care. Phineas was tail spinning. She was too worried about herself. That's a little lesson for everyone who, all of you out there who are just beginning your forays into the uncharted, unnavigable waters of love. You're going to be super self-conscious about yourself. So is the other person. They're not even paying attention to you. They're too busy focused on themselves. Don't even worry about it. That's my advice. Take it from me, who also has no actual relationship experience, just is basing that off of my own personal wisdom. Take it with a grain of salt, but that's just me philosophizing about romance. So take that advice for what it's worth. She'd inevitably reanalyze every detail of this conversation for hours on end in the near future, deciding ultimately that Phineas's foot in mouth comment was cute, but now wasn't the time for that. She couldn't scare him away. Taking a quick moment to compose herself, she calmly responded, "I've always really liked Saturn myself. It's so pretty with all its rings. But I like Uranus too, Phineas." Also kind of inappropriate, but it's my own fault. Phineas's mind was racing. This was turning into a total disaster. But PJ told him he had to push past the awkwardness, so that's what he did. He stood up straight, looked her into the eyes, looked into her eyes, and opened his mouth. "Isabella, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I'm not the most, what would you call it, romantically inclined person." "No," Isabella mock gasped. The boy failed to catch the sarcasm. "It's true," he assured her. "I don't know if you're into romance and that kind of stuff." Um, I think that should be one word, into. Oh well. Maybe it works. I don't know. I think one word's better. I should have made it one word. Oh well, typo. "But I know most girls are, and seeing as you're a girl, I guess you probably do. Like romance." Isabella wore a funny look. Like Phineas was a small child who had just figured out that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and believed he was actually enlightening her by telling her it was so. "I've thought about it once or twice," she sardonically understated, with a hint of playfulness as she watched her beloved squirm. "I see," he answered. "I'm not very romantically inclined. I mean, I guess I just said that, didn't I?" Phineas took a deep breath. "Look, Isabella, I don't know how to say this, but I guess I'm sorry about earlier. I don't even know why I'm sorry. I just am. What PJ said about us just really confused." A delightful shiver tingled Isabella's spine as she laid a silencing finger across his lips. "Ooh, steamy." "It's okay, Phineas. You don't have to feel sorry. You don't have to be sorry for anything." Phineas pulled her hand away from his mouth and lowered it to his chest, causing that shiver to linger. "Ooh, Isabella." Oh, geez. Because of the chapter I just released of Lovetopia, this is taking on a whole new. No, we're not going to go there. That's a video for another time when I eventually get around to doing reading and commentaries for Lovetopia. Are you sure? Yeah, speaking of inappropriate, Lovetopia's latest chapter. Oh boy. Yep. Are you? That's why we're not going to talk about this right now. Family friendly stream, you guys. Stream. Family friendly video. I'm not streaming. I'm just recording. So family friendly recording, everyone. You're welcome. "Are you sure? You looked so scared back there when PJ said we were going to be." He couldn't bring himself to say the word. They were standing so close now. She could feel his breath on her face. Ooh. Yep, ultra romantic. This was also painful for me to write. It took me like so many tries to get the scene right. I think I even published and then came back and re-edited this scene like a couple of weeks later. I just for the longest time I couldn't get it right, but I finally settled with this version, and this is the way it is, and I feel like I finally got it okay. Like I got it pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this scene now, but when I first published it, it was slightly different. I didn't like that version. I just felt compelled to rush to hurry and get this chapter out because the story seemed to be doing so well, and I wanted to keep building on that steam, that momentum, keep the momentum going. So I rushed it, and people didn't seem to notice. They seemed like they said the scene was fine in their reviews, which we'll get to in a few more minutes here. We're getting close to the end. But I still finally figured out, I finally cracked the code of how to get the scene the way I wanted it. And so this is the way it is. And never will the way I wrote it before come back to see the light of day. Where were we? He couldn't bring himself to say the word. They were standing so close now she could feel his breath on her face. Deciding there was no turning back now, Isabella Garcia Shapiro bravely squared her shoulders. Married? She offered. Phineas nodded. Then remembered he was still holding her hand betwixt his two. Ooh, to her delight, he didn't let go. That fact gave her the courage she needed to do what she did next. Timing her movement exactly as he resumed his thought, she gently placed her other hand onto his. Oh man, this this is even a little painful for me to read. I still didn't get all the cringes out of this scene that I tried to get out of it, but that's just partly on me because I'm just not a fan of romance in general, and writing this was hard. Reading this is still hard for me right now. Um, just to the problem the problem is, on the one hand, I'm just not a fan of romance, and that's not what I set out to write about and read about in when I set out to discover fan fiction, the Phineas and Ferb fan fiction uh, universe, everything that's out there about fan fiction. I didn't set out for the purpose of shipping them. That's what most fans are. That's what most fans turn to fan fiction for, is for shipping, and wasn't wasn't the case for me. So it's hard for me for that reason, and it's hard for me for the other reason that these are kids, you guys. They're like, by my calculations, 8 years old, maybe 9, maybe 10, if you're really generous. Maybe younger, but I feel like 8 to 10 seems about right. Somewhere in that age range is about what they seem like, and they don't need romance at that age, you guys. It's just uh, so unnatural. Uh, Wait until they're at least 12, at least, before you start getting them to act romantically towards each other. But I wrote it this way anyways, and here they are, uh, 8 or 10 years old or whatever, somewhere along those lines. Yeah, in romantic relationships or developing, for some reason. It just seems wrong to me. It feels unnatural to me, but I go with it anyways because that's just the fan fiction convention. I wanted this story to be liked by people. I wanted it to do well. I wanted to try to embrace, as much as I could, the shipping culture of fan fiction, and try my hand at a serious romantic take for once. Just to say I tried, just to expand uh, my writing resume, my experience, uh, and so I tried it. And, this I turned it out the best I could. I think it's still uncomfortable for me a little bit, but at the same time, as a whole, the story is still pretty good. Like, Under Absolute Despotism is so fun to go back and reread overall as a whole, and remember all the fun I had writing it. Yeah, let's keep going. Even if even if that really is the future, I just don't want to. Phineas had begun. Her touch stopped him. This is also slowing down time a lot in order to get all their thoughts and everything onto paper. This would be, I feel, a lot easier to do if I could animate this scene. It would feel at least a little bit more uh, timing wise. It would feel a little bit easier to follow along. Uh, Her touch stopped him. Looking down to see her hands holding his, he paused, as if he briefly lost his train of thought but quickly regained it. Affect our friendship. You kind of have to go back and reread this, uh, reread the dialogues parts. Now that you understand, now that you're seeing all their thought processes, and reaction faces or whatever, all how they're going on. Now you go back and read it in real time. It's okay, Phineas. You don't have to be sorry for anything. Are you sure? You looked so scared back there when PJ said we were going to be married. Even if that really is the future, I just don't want it to, affect our friendship. So yeah, now when you play it out in your mind that way, it it makes a little more sense. You see how the timing is a little bit better. You can visualize Phineas's nods or Isabella's movements to hold his hands, but it really messes up with the timing of their conversation by having to explain it one moment at a time. Uh, but that's just my lack of experience and lack of creativity in writing this scene. But I did the best I could do, so I can't can't really say anything else about it because that was the best I could do. So back to you know affect our friendship. He almost didn't have to finish the sentence. It couldn't be any clearer to the both of them that it wouldn't, as in affect their friendship. Isabella willed her eyes to remain dry. It wasn't that hard. She wanted to stare into that face forever. She simply beamed at him. Well, you are acting a little more romantically inclined right now. Phineas broke into a silly grin. Yes, I am. Much more at ease now, he returned her gaze. I bet someday in the future you'll probably be winning that swimsuit contest, he thought aloud. You are beautiful. Blushing, Isabella moved in closer, ever so slightly, as time crawled to a stop. And the rest is left to the reader's imagination as to how they finished that scene. Because, frankly, I just didn't want to write it. I didn't want to finish it. I was so drained at that point, just getting the scene that far, and didn't want to imply anything, but also wanted to save the big uh, climactic. Oh, are they going to kiss? They finally going to kiss, aren't they? That scene for a little later than the third chapter of the story. Like, come on, you got to hold that off until the end. But that seemed like a good time, at least mood wise. The mood was right for them to kiss right there. But the they shouldn't. They also shouldn't because they're still 8 freaking years old. You guys. Okay, maybe some people do like a little like kindergartners thing where they have their first kiss when they're in kindergarten, but that's not like real romance or uh really falling in love. That's just kids playing around and not knowing what they're doing. At least in my opinion, I didn't have any interest in girls until at least sixth grade at the earliest, and that's a conservative as well. Actually, the opposite of conservative. That's a liberal estimate. No, that doesn't work. A liberal estimate, that doesn't make any sense. Whatever the opposite of a conservative estimate is, that's being conservative to say it. I was at least in sixth grade before I started having a smidgen of interest in girls. So, anyways, long story short, they're too young. Moving on. Ah, we're almost done. Most of the audience had departed in search of other things to do. From the sky above, a helicopter dropped a winch, picked up the stage along with everything on it, and flew off. Thanks for the stage, boys, a man in khakis and wearing a camera slung around his neck was saying. Ferb appeared at Phineas's side, almost as opposite a bright-eyed Isabella. Bright-eyed because she just had her her scene that she was hoping for. Now I can finally fulfill my lifelong dream of taking the first group photo of all the U.S. presidents together. Like, that's that's a perfect example of quirky Danville residents doing their weird things. That, who would even think of that? But at the same time, I I have to like congratulate myself, pat myself on the back here at the creativity of that idea. Like a group photo of all the U.S. presidents together. Like who would be the mad lad who would use time travel for that? Like the meme of boys versus girls using a time machine. Girls, I'm your granddaughter. Oh my, versus boys, and usually it's something like, oh, let's go kill Hitler or help Hitler get accepted into painters school and prevent World War II or whatever. And I could just see that me and boys using a time machine. Let's take the first ever group photo of all the U.S. presidents together. Like, what the heck? So random, but so memeable. 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 Meme able to be memed. Uh, sometimes I impress myself. Amaze myself. Yep. You're welcome, Phineas waved as the man got on his bike and rode away. We were done with it anyways. Candace appeared as well, with Linda in tow. Aha! See, Mom? Proof! Hi, boys, Linda said. Obviously, there was nothing out of the ordinary to be observed. Hi, Mom. Hi, Candace, Phineas greeted. But, Candace butted. But he was all right here. Are you boys having fun with your 4th of July? Linda asked. You bet, Phineas answered, and Ferb nodded. That's good to hear, Linda turned to Candace. Now, I am going back to the pie. Candace slouched over in defeat as she walked past. PJ arrived to stand beside Ferb. Hey, where did everything go? If I knew, Candace answered despondently, I wouldn't be here. With that, she turned and left too. Phineas's face brightened with a smile. Hey, there you are, Perry. Yep, because that's the usual order of things. Perry always appears. And we didn't even get to see Perry's uh, B story. What all happened with Perry and Doofenshmirtz until the next chapter. Woo! Yep, but we're gonna save that for next chapter. Perry pattered to the spot Candace had been standing on moments earlier. You've missed out on an interesting day. We were at the parade, riding on a float, and all of a sudden, come to think of it, I should connect these two paragraphs to make it more clear that Phineas is the one still speaking. Another typo. I'm finding a lot of these today. Found a lot of them every chapter, haven't we? It would be better if this was one paragraph because uh, now that I'm noticing it, it's a little unclear who's saying this line. It's obviously still Phineas, but it's not super implied by the layout here. You've missed an interesting day. We were at the parade riding a float, and all of a sudden, blah blah, blah dot 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 ellipsis. It is Phineas still speaking, um, but we just mentioned we started a new paragraph, mentioned the name Perry and the name Candace, all in the same time, all in the same line before continuing the next line of dialogue, and so that could be a little confusing. It's not super confusing, and the tone matches Phineas totally, so people should figure it out. But it's just a little bit offbeat. So I think that would have been better if I had kept these two paragraphs connected. Uh, but maybe I'll fix it someday. Maybe I'll go back one of these days and fix all these typos one by one. But that day is not today. Perry wasn't listening. He had, hence the ellipsis. the dot dot dot. That's called ellipsis. In case you never knew. Uh, Perry wasn't listening. He had immediately spotted and recognized the platypus, conspicuously disguised as a kid standing next to Ferb. The moment he caught the other mammal's eye, Perry glared. My, after talking for so long, I cannot do the Perry chatter anymore. It's gone from me. Uh, had to get a drink. But that's the end of chapter 3. And setting up the cliffhanger of, ooh, what's going to happen now that Perry and PJ have met for the first time. Going to be super cool. And probably definitely, no probably about it, definitely another one of my all-time favorite chapters, the next chapters, where Perry and PJ go off and fight Doofenshmirtz and his time clone. That's such a great chapter. I had so much fun writing that, and every time I go back and reread it, brings a smile to my face. That's a great chapter. So I'm excited to uh, get to it, get to reading it with you guys again, hopefully soon. That being said, I do want to prioritize finishing the last chapter of Lovetopia because, well, to be frank, nobody's watching these videos, so that tells me that they don't need to be very high priority. And as it stands, I'm just doing it for fun. Maybe there's a chance someday that somebody will find them and will find these videos interesting. If not, that's okay too. Well, I understand. I'm not a professional author and don't have my own following, and I'm just a fan fiction writer and not famous or anything. And on top of that, even though I'm biased and I think I'm a great writer, who's to say? Maybe I'm actually not that great of a writer and don't deserve a following. But I'm biased, so I don't want to accept that. I don't want to accept that opinion, that possibility. I think my stories are great. Well, anyways, let's uh, let's get to uh, going over the reviews and wrapping up this this recording. So, um, really quickly, I guess I will go over the review responses that I wrote. Well, is there any point to going over these review responses? Because I already responded to the reviews in the previous uh, video for the previous chapter. It's like these review responses kind of speak for themselves. What else is there for me to say besides what's already inside of them? Like the 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 tradition or trend of responding to reviews at the end of stories. Uh, is that even the right word? Tradition? What would you call it? It's a behavior. It's a yeah. I guess that's a suitable word. The behavior of responding to reviews in bold at the end of your story or at the beginning of your next update or whatever is a pretty common occurrence, a pretty common trend for lots of fan fiction writers, at least that I've seen in the Phineas and Ferb uh, community. So, so therefore, I have tried to do it too, and uh, it's basically what gave me the idea to do these recordings is that this is basically more on a massive scale instead of specifically writing to individual reviews and responding to them. I get to talk about the entire story and everything that went into them. Just it's just going to take a long time, and so that's why I thought writing it out would be too time consuming and too hard for people to read. It's easier to listen to. Plus, you can, if it's on YouTube, you can like switch it to double speed, and that way I'm talking super fast, and you get to hear, uh, you get to be more efficient with your time, but still get all the same information that you may or may not find interesting about what went into the story writing processes and whatnot. But as basically, I'm just basically doing the exact same thing in these recordings that I do or that people do in responding to reviews. So my point in explaining all this is uh, stalling for time to make up my mind whether I want to read and what I have written right here is my reviews or not, because I basically already reacted to them. I already gave my re, my reaction, my commentary to them in the last video, and so this is just kind of doing the exact same thing again. Actually, did I talk about ice cream truck drivers in the last update? I don't remember. In the last recording, I don't remember anymore. Uh, because uh, presumably those of you who are watching these videos are probably doing it more or less back to back. They're going to all be posted and all freely available to watch at any time. Whereas when I'm actually recording them, I don't remember, because in actuality, it was like a month ago that I did the recording for the last chapter. I've just been really busy. Finally gotten around to it. And also, I wanted to wait until the actual reading of the Declaration of Independence to happen on the 4th of July, but that's a minor detail. Mostly, I've just been super busy. Uh, uh, and like I mentioned, I'm trying to prioritize finishing Lovetopia first, because that seems to be the more popular thing. There's at least like 10 people reading Lovetopia still. There's 0 people watching these videos right now. There's at least a whole 10 people somewhere in the world actually reading Lovetopia every update, based on the numbers that I have looked at. A whopping 10 people. So therefore, it's higher priority. Uh, let's just do it really fast. Snowy Owl 13. I told the Snowy Owl 13. Those are some interesting guesses. I don't even remember what they said. I guess you'll find out next chapter about the ice cream truck lady. Got the idea to have an ice cream truck driver kidnap them after seeing the creepy ice cream truck drivers employed in the city I used to live in. What was the city that had the creepiest ice cream truck drivers? I'll tell you. It was Wichita, Kansas. I lived there for a year. And man, those were some creeps. They looked like total serial killers or something, with long, unkempt beards and tattoos everywhere. They disturbed me enough. I preferred store-bought ice cream. LMPF. Oh yeah, I remember trying to guess the acronym of LMPF stands for. PF. If when I see PF together, I think that I automatically think Phineas Ferb. So, what does LM? What could LM possibly mean to relate to Phineas Ferb? I don't know. I can't figure out that acronym. I told LMPF I plan to make it even more exciting, so stick around. Told Epic Thaw 3. I think I answered that in this chapter. It's like I planned it that way. Yep. His question was about what do you call the first gentleman, and I specifically shoehorned in. Uh, that's what the first gentleman is called in this chapter, because of his review, and also to come off as a know-it-all and prove how smart I am to everyone. Ha! Look at me, I'm so smart. I know this random trivia, but I don't remember that the name of Uranus's largest moon is, and shoot, I already forgot. It was started with a T. Yep, I already left that Wikipedia page. Uh, yep, I still can't even type. No, not Triton. Triton's Neptune's. Why do I keep going back to Triton? Yeah, rewind the stream if you want to remember that. And Jesus, proof I'm not a know-it-all. I'm human, you guys. I'm not a robot. I don't know everything. Platyman, what an epic review! I was pumped to get it, and always am pumped to get a Platyman review. Keeping everyone in character is a goal of mine, so it's good to know I pulled that off this far. Isabella to me was always the obvious choice for president. I figured most people would expect Phineas and Ferb to be the president, but honestly, and I really believe this honestly, Isabella is one of the better. It is the one with the better leadership skills. Phineas and Ferb, they make great leaders among the smartest and most talented. But Isabella accomplishes the impossible just as easily while leading a troop of far more normal kids like the Fireside Girls. And Phineas and Ferb don't necessarily step into the leadership role just because they're natural leaders. They do it because they're the ones who are doing exceptional things. But that doesn't. This is going to sound like pretty counterintuitive, but uh, it makes sense to me. It seems to me like Phineas and Ferb just kind of do what they do, whether they're in leadership roles or not. They're just going to do whatever they do. Whereas Isabella actually seeks out the chance to be a leader, and not because she wants to be in charge, but because she just is comfortable in a position of leadership. She just it's a natural place for her to be. It's her natural environment is being a leader. She couldn't be anywhere else than being a leader. So to me, that makes total sense. Whereas Phineas and Ferb, yeah, they could be leaders because they're just so good at everything that they do. They're just totally competent no matter what they're doing and no matter where they're doing it. But uh, on the other hand, uh, they could be totally unrelatable to people who aren't geniuses the way they are. So, because of that, I just don't see them naturally seeking out leadership in the same way. They're more likely to go off and do whatever they want to do, um, dan- uh, march to the beat of their own drum, um, and not necessarily be a leader, and almost maybe even forget about the needs of those around them because they're going to get so wrapped up into whatever project they're working on. Isabella is, on the other hand, more sensitive to the people around her, their needs, and how to help them, and so that makes her a better, more natural leader, in my opinion. Makes a good twist, makes a big leap for feminism, and makes more sense ultimately. And not that I care about feminism or anything. I actually, like I always say, the story comes first, and I think that this was a good that I think that Isabella being the president of the United States in the future is the more uh, interesting story choice than Phineas and Ferb becoming president or something. And so I continue. Be patient on the doof; he'll fit in somewhere. Next chapter, in fact, this story is being told by the prisoner, and he hasn't come across our favorite evil scientist yet. Thanks again for the remarkably descriptive and encouraging review. Platinum always gives great reviews. It's always a it's always a pleasure and a treat to get an analysis from him. The Avatar Lord Roku. Should I or shouldn't I? Yeah, I'll spoil it. PJ and Perry will be shown more in the next chapter, where we'll get to see them interact for the first time. Haha. If you read to the end, you'd have already known that anyway. It's not really a spoiler. That's not really a spoiler. And I'm excited to write it. Yep, I'm sure I was. All right. Start at the bottom for the start of the first review first. The WGPM says, the nose knows. Oh my gosh, genius. I know, right? I know, right? So, such a good play on words, such a good pun. My, this story's twisty. The amount of speculation about who's who and what's what and when's where and how's something else is just enough to keep people interested without making us wonder if anything's ever going to be revealed. Sorry if that sentence was confusing. Nope, made complete sense. I've had some thoughts about PJ myself, and this is almost as crazy as the Ditto guess, but could he be, I don't know, Phineas and Isabella's son that was somehow turned into a platypus via strange future technology? It's a long shot, I know, but it would explain the character's ability to speak English and his comments in this chapter about him not popping out of existence. I understand now that is most likely not the case, but it was a fun idea while it lasted. Uh, PJ's character arc is also a story of going from a loner towards accepting a new family. That's PJ's story arc in the entire Despotism trilogy. Uh, Despotism is actually book 2 in the trilogy, and Gulf of Civil Horror is book 3. The prequel is PJ's story about his first mission as a member of the Secret Service, where he goes to Mars. But I don't know that I'm actually. I don't think there's a less than 1% chance that I'm actually going to ever write that story. So unfortunately, the trilogy probably will never be completed. But the trilogy, uh, as a whole, is just one huge series to give PJ's character arc from beginning to end. He starts as a loner. Uh, he slowly gains friends and gains acceptance about himself and who he is and what he can do. And then by the end of Gulf of Civil Horror, he's finally found his family. He's found his place in the world, a place where he belongs, and gets his happily ever after. Yeah. And that's the trilogy. That's the whole story, the whole character arc that PJ goes through. So why am I saying this? If PJ was somehow Phineas's and Isabella's son, why would he be a loner who's not really accepted in the group? Doesn't get along with Phineas and Ferb at first, is just kind of standoffish, businesslike, doesn't want to get close to them, pushes them away when he first meets them, takes him a while to warm up to them. So, yeah, the sorry WGPM, your theories got some big holes in it that probably I didn't even see clear back when I was writing this. But like you said, it was a fun idea, and the point of the story is encouraging speculation about future, what the kids' stories and lives will be like in the future. So yeah, at least that was accomplished. Smiley face emoticon, the colon, then the capital D. Uh, Smiley face emoticon. Yeah, somebody's grinning widely. By the way, someone get JFK's swimsuit on Ferb. Thinks for a moment. I bet that's the only time anyone's ever said that sentence. Or typed it, for that matter. I'm just rambling now. Well, I just said it again, so now that is no longer the case. Get someone JFK's swimsuit on Ferb. Uh, so, by the way, the WGPM and I are good friends. We've known each other for a long time. It just so happens that her OTP is Ferbella. So I I was a little confused when I read this when I first got this review. I was like trying to make heads or tails of what is she talking about? Someone get JFK's swimsuit on Ferb? Uh, is she's a the WGPM is a Ferbella. I'm sorry, not a Ferbella. That's completely different. Ferbnessa. Uh, Ferbella. Don't even get me started. Did I say Ferbella earlier? Ferb and Vanessa is the WGPM's OTP, one true pairing. And don't let me confuse that. It's not Ferbella, it's Ferbnessa. Uh, or at least that was her OTP when a few years ago. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. I'd have to ask her. But yeah, Ferbnessa was her OTP for a while and at the time, and I think she was saying this because she wanted Vanessa to see Ferb in a swimsuit, but not JFK's swimsuit because JFK is an adult-sized robot, and the swimsuit he would be wearing would be way too big for Ferb. Was your idea also that because JFK had the moment where he was flexing like a bodybuilder, and that was the joke, the gag, the visual gag that I used in the story? Is that why? And Vanessa reacted positively to that. You're trying to get her to give that same reaction to Ferb. I think that's where she was going with that, but several jumbled up thoughts that were not set up, and she just says this line out of nowhere. So I was a little confused as to what she was talking about, but I think that's what she was trying to say there. Uh, sh- guess who else is just rambling now? Haha. Been rambling this whole time. 3 chapters in, we already have 2 songs, quite a bit of Finabella development, awesome comedic moments, and a creepy ice cream truck lady. It's interesting that the story takes place on the 4th of July, and I'm personally am waiting on something about the holiday from Ferb. What with his being the country that everyone is celebrating their independence from. Yeah, not going to happen. Ferb doesn't have anything to say about it. He doesn't. Uh, I don't know why he. The the meme is everybody has an Independence Day to celebrate because of Great Britain, right? That's the meme. Like I've seen that meme. It seems like it's spread pretty far and wide. So for being British, is am I going to acknowledge that or make a nod to it or something? And the answer is no. Ferb has nothing to say on it. Nothing to yeah, nothing to say on it. Nothing to say about it. So what's the point of so yeah, there's nothing to write about it, even though you may seem to think that he might have something interesting to say. He doesn't. At least that's what I think. And for the purposes of the story, I'm in charge, so I get to say that. I think this is my favorite chapter so far, and I'm really excited to see where the story goes. Will there be more secrets revealed? Yes. What kind of role will Doof play when he comes in? A comedic one. How does Perry recognize PJ if he is, in fact, Perry's son? Well, that's a trick question. That's not the right question because Perry doesn't recognize PJ as his son or anything or recognize him as if he knows him. It was more that Perry considered PJ a threat, who had gotten too close to the boys. Will I stop asking pointless questions and just wait for the next chapter? I'm going to go with yes. Even so, I'll be sticking around to see what happens next. Sign the 4 most random letters in the most random order ever. We all know that's not true. Jet engine. This is completely epic. Thanks, Jet engine. I'm glad you think so. I think so too. Uh, Jet engine, you're cool too. I really enjoyed your series with Agent P, the Agent P series. It's been so many years. I can't remember the title anymore. But I enjoyed reading that series. So Jet Engine, you're probably never going to hear this, but you know I liked reading that series. Bilaterus, fringe character judges, miscellaneous flavors of pie, evil comments. There's something familiar about this chapter. Uh, all those components he just listed were components that he'd written in one of his stories once. I want to say Doof's Evil Finabella story, but totally a coincidence, I swear. I promise. Maybe I also realized that the coincidence even as I was writing them, but still, totally a coincidence, I swear. This is really great so far, shaping up to be one of the best fics of its kind in a really long time. Aw, shucks. Even though I secretly agree 100%. I'll not go into detail on the first couple chapters, but let's just say I was hanging on for the update, something I've only rarely felt in my time here. Oh, that's pretty cool. I think my stories are good too. I know you had some doubts about this chapter, but I thought it was pretty good. Well, I still had doubts about it, and it was after this review had been posted that I went back and uh, rearranged that Finabella scene at the end. But anyways, even if the original scene he thought was good, it's definitely way better now. The opening worked well. Phineas's awkwardness is a valid thing for him to experience. I thought the transition to the big idea, the idea itself, was good stuff. Oh gosh, the Uranus thing. Imagery is terrifying. Yes, I know. I fought myself on whether I should use a joke that dirty, but in the end, my sixth grade in a, my my sixth grade immature self won out in the end, as it usually does. I'd really do things the same way as you did this chapter for what it's worth. Perhaps I'd have Phineas and Isabella get over that initial bout of awkward conversation awkwardness, and descend into a joke or two about the solar system. You got a cup. You have a good joke or two about the solar system, because I would love to hear them if you do. I no seriously, tell me some good jokes. Still, this is a perfectly good chapter on stuff that's tricky to get believable. I eagerly await the rest. Agent B Tiger, loved it. Can't wait to see how Perry's going to take PJ's presents. Oh yeah, you're going to love that too, Agent B Tiger. Unfortunately, I don't really have something interesting to say here, but I believe you just gave away who the prisoner is. Yeah, it's like I reveal the mysteries of the story when I want them to be revealed or something. JK. Avatar Lord Roker, nice reveal. Fireside Girls played great support. Also, lulled at the Uranus line. That really was awkward. Yeah. Platy Man. Here we go. Another really entertaining chapter, Zapdos. The concept of the robot presidential swimwear concept is hilarious, as is its execution, and works really well as a typical P&F scheme, which keeps to get the chapter grounded and serves to tie the more dramatic romance and espionage elements and provide light relief. You really hit the nail on the head, Platy Man, because that was exactly my intent when I was writing the story. Was having the Phineas and Ferb project, the swimsuit contest or whatever, specifically to do those things. Although you worded it way better than I would have, but to tie together the more dramatic romance and espionage elements, plus provide light relief, that is exactly uh, how and why I envisioned that chapter being there. Or what am I talking about? That scene being in the chapter, and also the structure of the chapter as a whole revolving around that. You just word it so much better than I do, but that's exactly what my intention was, Platy Man. Uh, I have a hard time putting it into words because I I don't have a ton of like formal storytelling training. Especially back when I wrote this, like I have a little. I don't have formal education. I just watch uh, YouTube videos and read books about storytelling. So still technically an informal education that I have at this point. But especially back when I was writing this, still, I was just going purely off of instinct, off of what I thought would make a good story, based on my experience being a lifelong uh, consumer of stories, books, movies, TV shows, etc. All of us are lifelong consumers of stories. Uh, every human being on the planet uses storytelling and narration to as a fundamental part of their identity and community and society and communicating with other people. That's like one of the fundamental aspects of human nature is storytelling. It's something that we all have uh, an innate quality for. We all get storytelling. We all just get it instinctively. But that doesn't mean we're all good at it instinctively. It still takes practice. It still takes learning and time. Uh, just like any talent, you can have natural talents for something, but you still have to practice and work hard at it to become good at it. But so yeah, that's all I'm talking. Uh, that's my long spiel on how we're all storytellers and we all have the potential to be storytellers. But uh, for me, I was just relying on what I what my instinctual understanding of a good story was, uh, and you recognized that uh, the project was to tie together the more dramatic romance and espionage elements and provide light relief. That's exactly what I was doing, even though I couldn't have put it into words as well as you did. I had that instinctive understanding of that, and that was what I was trying to make the story do. So thank you, and 100% agree. Continuing, I also liked how you used PJ's viewpoint so as to allow the reader to see the project from the eyes of a semi outsider who is observing it in a more analytical way and can appreciate just how remarkable it is. Yeah, I think it was interesting too. I thought it was a neat little point of view that is not uh, considered very often in fan fiction. So I thought it was an interesting idea to present. All right, here we go. Pardon me, but I do think there's a hint of a plot hole regarding PJ sharing information with kids. Oh, more than a hint. It's pretty glaring. In Phineas and Ferb's time, the US government, or ALCA at least, possesses at least two devices capable of deleting memories, and they were more than willing to use them. If their operations were exposed, you would think that the Secret Service would be given access to those devices if they were operating as time travelers, so as to erase any knowledge of future events that they may let slip to those they encounter. There are plenty of possible explanations as to their lack of use of this technology. However, both the memory erasing devices we have so far seen on the show were extremely complex and bulky, and so may have been impractical to transport, and the technology may be incapable of being miniaturized, or perhaps there's some interdepartmental rivalry between Alka and other services. They prefer to keep their super science to themselves. You should definitely address it, though. Yeah, I guess that's an important uh, thing to mention. I don't know. When you're the writer, you get so wrapped up in your way of seeing the story and how you plan everything to work out, and all the plot points to progress from point to point to point, and so it's really hard to see a genuine plot hole and see how important it is. But you're absolutely right. Uh, the amnesia and Ader, there's no reason that PJ couldn't have used something exactly like it to cover up his screw ups. Uh, Other than the reason that the story didn't need it and didn't care about it because I didn't care about it. But yeah, you're right. Realistically, real people in that real situation who don't know the future, who don't know how the story is supposed to go, like I do, would consider that an important thing, and it would definitely need to be addressed. And it's unfortunate that I can't think of a good answer or response to it. But that's just the way it is, and the story has to go. The show has to go on. The show must go on, I think they say. Even though that's totally not related to what we're talking about here, but kind of is. So yeah, can't really address it. I don't really have a response for it. Just it is what it is. The song worked well, and I really liked Balthazar's latest platypus encounter, which provided comic relief at a well-judged moment, as well as a great reference to the show. Yeah, the good old ball pit kid. Oh, I didn't even remember to talk about this when we hit that part, but the ballpark kid. If you've seen every episode, you'd remember him, but he totally blends into the background, and you wouldn't remember who he was. The show never says what his name is. You have to look it up on the Phineas and Ferb fan wiki in order to learn who the kid is. But he's the kid who catches Agent P sometimes without his disguise, like when Candace and Lawrence are at the father-daughter competition or whatever, and Perry is being the robot version of Lawrence while he's getting his memories restored because he accidentally wandered into Perry's lair on that day. And Balthazar Horowitz is the his nickname is the Ball Pit Kid, and he sees Perry. He accidentally sees through Perry's disguise while he's trying to cool off the overheating robot. Or is that right? Or was it? No, it was the pie eating contest, and he was getting rid of the pies that the robot was eating whole in one bite. Was that it? Oh, I'd have to go back and read. Anyways, it's just a couple of episodes. You see the kid, but yeah, it was a perfect use of the kid and reference to the show. Next paragraph. I suppose what you really want to know is whether you did a good job with the Finabella material. Yep, that is what I really want to know, but I want to know about if I did a good job about everything and in general. Since I'm sure you know that awkward romantic confession stories can often be pretty torturous. Oh, yeah. Don't I know it? Especially since you've made it clear you're not a guy who really enjoys shipping. So, you needn't have worried, as you have strong enough understanding of the characters to make it work, the scene between them. If, oh, is, I'm sure that's a typo, that should be is, not if, is genuinely funny and sweet and feels right for the characters. It's a little odd to have Phineas being embarrassed, and it seemed, oh, you think so? Is Phineas not the type to get embarrassed? You know? In the entire series, when does Phineas genuinely get embarrassed? Yeah, that's a good point. That's not really a trait that he has. Come to think of it, that might be a little out of character for him. But it's also his first time dealing with love, so I feel like I have a good excuse. Yeah, you have a good point. I'll admit. Your your statement has been noted, Platy Man. It seems slightly abrupt for him to have a sudden realization that he has a feeling for her at the most convenient moment. Oh yeah, that's true. I also hate that about it. And I think that was the one that was something that was in the changes that I made when I updated that scene. But it's still a little bit present in the previous chapter because that's still kind of exactly what's going on in the ice cream truck when he has the sudden realization that he has feelings for her at the most convenient moment. Yeah, super convenient. Uh, not my favorite part of the story. Could have been better executed. However, it doesn't feel out of character, especially since you've taken the time in the fic to demonstrate how well they work together and to elaborate on why Phineas feels trepidation about the situation. Excuse me. I really enjoy that you had them actually thinking through the situation rationally and acting on it. After the scene with the fireside girls, I was afraid that Isabella was going to act on their advice and drag out the confession over the fic and stretch the periodic comic awkwardness until too far until it became tiresome. But thankfully, you avoided that. Yeah, there was no way I would do something like that. That's a bad idea. Again, you don't just tell me the characters are smart people; you write them as smart people, and ultimately, that makes the story not only more in character but more interesting. I am really quite excited to see where this story goes next. That's that's just the best. Some some like the the critiques make some good points that I can't help but acknowledge, and also it makes me feel good for feeling like despite the story's flaws, a lot of people are really taking a liking to it, saying stuff like uh, that they're excited to see where it goes, really hanging on for the next chapter. Uh, Completely epic. A lot of people leaving reactions like that. I'm so glad people like the story because I think it's great. Epic Thoth threes. I's been waiting for you to update this story. I's been waiting so long that I had to go to Boston to read it. And what can I say? The accent has rubbed off on me. Can't wait for the next chapter. Personally, I was looking forward to the point where they travel through time. And I overdid the accent, didn't I? Yes, you did. Translation, it was funny. I like it. Keep it up. Oh, thanks, Epic Thoth Threes. What a personality. I don't care what this says. Wow, this story, in my opinion, has the perfect balance of sci fi action and romance, not to mention having an extremely addicting and incredibly well written plot. You, my friend, deserve more followers, favorites, and reviews. I can't wait for the next chapter to come out. Oh, man. Such praise. I'm not worthy. Actually, I'm biased. I think I'm totally worthy. I wish everybody, I think more people should praise me. Praise me more. Praise me more. Oh, geez. That's embarrassing to say, but no, honestly, where do I draw the line of being humble but also being braggy about? Yeah, I know my stories are good, but at the same time, if they were really that good, wouldn't there be more people reading them? Nah. The only thing that matters is that I think they're good, right? How corny is that? Can't believe I just said that. No filter, you guys. That's when I go to my job interviews. When I go to my job interviews and the interviewer asks me what my biggest flaw is, I say I'm too honest. I'll say exactly what's on my mind with no filter. That's one of my biggest weaknesses. Pickle Pickle 7. Uh-oh, I wonder who PJ is. Another awesome Finabella moment there. And the president's swimsuit fashion show was cool too. Thanks. Piano Man 5, I think Phineas's thought process on complimenting Isabella was spot on and hilarious. You really nailed that. Nice stage, Uranus, and mock gasped had me laughing. Here is the difference in having the time to go back and change that scene. You guys, it was like a couple weeks later after I'd posted this chapter, which was uh, probably around July 20th or 21st, 2014. Whoops. And the here Piano Man's reading the better edited, updated version of that scene. So no wonder he's having a better reaction to it. Because I had had a chance to finally get that scene to be exactly the way I wanted it to be. He also says, I see you have a bit of an omniscient POV point of view throughout this, where you'll zoom in and out of one character's thoughts and then go into the mind of another. I've never tried this before, but always trying to strictly confine the view to one character, but I wonder if I should give it a shot. Seems to give you a lot of flexibility in describing each character's thoughts. Do you consciously decide to do your POVs this way, or do you have any thoughts about that? Still excited to see the plot further thicken. Um, let's see. For point of views, yeah, I use. I think they call it something like uh, omniscient third person point of view, where you're not really any character, you're just some narrator who uh, can know everything, but only goes to the point that's most important or most interesting for the audience to have uh, the best possible experience at that moment or at any given moment in the story. That is the where the narrator goes. Um, Presumably, the true narrator is actually PJ, aka the prisoner, who's telling this story this whole time in his interrogation. So he couldn't possibly know Phineas and Isabella's thoughts going on. In fact, he wasn't even there for that scene where they had their confession or whatever, if you can even call that a confession together. It's more like an acceptance than a confession, to be honest. But, uh, so PJ wasn't even there. How could he possibly know that's what they said or that's what they thought? He didn't. It's impossible. That isn't the point. The point is more to tell the best story possible. I just tend to like using uh, narrate that narrator style of uh, omnipotent third person, where you kind of can know anything or everything that's going on, and you only zoom into the place that's most interesting or most important or most relevant to the story at that moment. And I think that, yeah, you're right. It does give a lot of flexibility. You can go anywhere, say anything, uh, whatever you like. All the information is there to be revealed at your fingertips when you're ready to reveal it. You can trickle it out a little bit at a time, like a true mystery, or you can reveal it all at once for creating a huge twist. You just have so many choices that you can do. I think I prefer it most of all because it's the most commonly used narration style or technique, if you will, in adult novel uh, novels, and I don't mean adult as in, you know, mature stuff. I mean adult as in that the target audience is grown ups, adults, so it's grown up stories. I'm talking uh, the kind of stuff that I grew up reading uh, was like um, going through my phases. I went from uh, Jurassic Park, so Michael Crichton, to Lord of the Rings, so Tolkien, to Harry Potter, so J.K. Rowling, excuse me, to pretty much to other stuff. I think Clive Cussler. What else? Oh, I always forget his name. Let's see. Um, what about? Oh, I went through my Sherlock Holmes phase. So Arthur Conan Doyle, um, Arthur C. Clarke when I went through my sci-fi phase. So yeah, just that's kind of the most common style overall in novels for targeting adult audiences, as in just big best like New York Times bestseller novels that you'd go pick up from the biggest, most popular authors in the world today or whatever. And so I just imitate that because that's what I've been reading so much of my life. And you do what you see. You learn from observation. So that's about all I can say without thinking about it more. Anyways, yeah, I think that's the last review, and so we're ready to wrap up this recording. Um, if anybody does happen to be out there listening to this all, thanks for joining me. Um, you're great. And this is Zapdos Master 145, and I will hopefully see you again soon.